Hi everybody, welcome to Adobe Live on behance.net. My name is Michael Jarrett. I'm an art director here at Adobe. Joining me today is Nathaniel Dodson. Welcome.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so we've got a really exciting episode today. We're gonna be doing some Photoshop compositing. It's looking really good. There's gonna be a ton of stuff to learn. So we're really excited. Couple of housekeeping things. If this is your first time joining, welcome. Even if it's not your first time joining, welcome. We'd love to know where you're from, so go ahead and type where you're watching from right now. If you're watching on YouTube, that's awesome. If you're watching on behance.net, that's even more awesome because in about 30 minutes, we're gonna be doing a giveaway. This plush Photoshop pillow, highly valuable. Have you felt that yet?
No, I haven't.
It feels really good. It's really soft.
It's very fluffy.
Yeah.
Plus
nice.
now both of us have touched it.
Yeah, so touch greatness. So please join us on be.net/live and join in the chat pod. Say something, just say hi, and in 30 minutes, a random person will be receiving that pillow. Also later today, we're gonna be reviewing a challenge. You've got about an hour and a half to do this challenge. The challenge tab is available for you to take a look. But basically, we're gonna be using Photoshop to create an animated GIF image using the timeline panel. So the theme of this is gonna be extreme sport. That's a tall order. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. If you wanna click to learn to use the timeline panel and make a short animated GIF, it could be a bouncing ball, it could be a spinning wheel, it could be a skateboarder doing a flip in the air, skydiving.
We've seen it. Doing a flip in the air.
Yeah, we've seen it all. So feel free to join in that challenge. And we'll be reviewing that later, and our favorite will get a 1-year subscription to Creative Cloud for free. So check the challenge tab on be.net/live to get all the details, and be sure to submit within an hour and a half, and we'll take a look at those. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nathaniel from tutvid.com. He's a commercial photographer, amazing Photoshop compositor. Welcome.
I guess that's to be seen.
Yeah, we'll see. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you come from.
I live right in the Philly area, and I'm a commercial photographer. I do a lot of photography work. I also do a little bit in terms of web design and that kind of graphic stuff, but I'm kind of trying to move away from that a little bit. It's just the passion's starting to kind of, when it starts feeling more like work than something I'm having fun doing, I think I'm ready to move on from it. So I do a lot of photography work, a lot of commercial work, and I also have a YouTube channel called Tutvid, short for tutorial video, and we make a lot of cool stuff over there. Trying to do about a video a day, and cover Photoshop, Premiere, After Effects, Lightroom, Audition, a little DaVinci Resolve, if I can step outside of the Adobe family for a second. And Adobe Illustrator, of course. How could I forget my favorite of all the apps, actually, Adobe Illustrator.
So does this count as your video of the day, or you're gonna go home?
There won't be any video going up today, tomorrow, or the day after, the days that I'm out here. But that's not because usually I'm scheduled 2 weeks in advance.
Gotcha.
But a couple weeks ago I was sick and I was out of commission for about 10 days. Not because I was bedridden, but because the sickness stole my voice. And
which is kind of core to your show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's important to have the voice to be able to do the recording. There's a little bit of catch up, and I'm kind of structuring the stuff, missing a couple days of videos here and there to get myself back on track.
Well, we're glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Cool. So let's see where some people are from. We got Austin, Texas. That's my hometown. Hi. Milwaukee, Florida. Oh, let's see. Prescott, Arizona. Japan, from Japan, watching from the Netherlands. Okay.
Japan, it's tomorrow in Japan right now, isn't it?
Maybe, and in the Netherlands, I'm sure it's evening time. Cool. So we got people from all over. Again, would like to welcome everybody. In the Philippines, it's 2 a.m., so this Photoshop pillow is needed.
Yeah.
I just read, which is great. Yeah, 4 a.m. in Australia. All right, people are up late, watching, early. It's Illinois, hook 'em horns. All right. Cool, so let's get into it. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm ready to go, man.
Cool.
I'm ready to go.
So we got Photoshop open.
We're in Photoshop.
What are we gonna do today?
You guys can see my computer, yes.
Yeah.
All right, we're just gonna kick this off. We're working on composite stuff over the next 3 days. My goal is to do a composite a day. And all 3 of the composites are different. It's like different ways of thinking about composites in Photoshop. So today we're gonna focus on a double exposure, which is compositing a few images together, and also doing a little bit of text work with it, applying it to a poster, some cool stuff like that. And we're gonna use all Adobe stock for this for this particular project. So it's all stuff that you can get. You just might need to sign up for some Adobe stock stuff or find your own stock, whatever works. Or if you're a good photographer and you can go out and shoot photos that look close enough or similar enough, this is the recipe for making a really cool double exposure. Cool. All right, slow me down if you need me to slow down.
All right.
I'm often told that I speak too quickly.
Yes, and that's a good reminder. If anybody's got questions during this stream, we're here to answer them.
Cool.
A lot of knowledge right here. Always happy to answer a little bit of knowledge.
A little bit of knowledge.
Some questions. Hit us with some hard ones, some challenging ones, whatever you want to know. If there's something that we can break down further, we'll be sure to make some time for it.
Please. The more difficult, the better. All right, so we're gonna go File New to kick this thing off. And I've been a big fan of working at the 2560 by 1440 resolution these days. It's just whatever it is about it, it does me good. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new document here. And what I'm gonna do is, before we get into the libraries and potential Adobe stock stuff, I wanna get rid of my background image and I wanna just convert this to a solid color image. So I'm gonna move down here to the bottom of my layers panel and hit the little half white, half black circle and drop a solid color adjustment layer in here. Part of the reason that I'm doing this is because solid color adjustment layers, it's so easy to just, you double click the thumbnail, you can change the color of that layer. Or if you have gone ahead and set a particular color in your color picker, let's say some kind of red, you can set that as your foreground color. See over here, there it is, my foreground color. And then I can just use that hotkey Option Delete or Alt Backspace, and it changes the fill of that fill layer. So for that reason, I like to work with a color fill, especially when I know I'm working on a document like this. It's going to become a poster, so we may have to change the color of the background later. So I'm going to hit the little lock icon and just drag this layer down to the garbage can. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this like a white, or maybe what we'll do, we'll go with a very, very light beige, right? Something like that. So that's FFF9EB if you're following along and you want the hexadecimal code. Once we've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my libraries, and these are all images I've downloaded from Adobe Stock. When you use Adobe Stock, you can choose to download to a specific folder in your Creative Cloud library. So you've got Downloads, Color Schemes, Premiere Pro, Assets. So this is just my images, and I've got this firefighter here. I don't know if you can see that, firefighter. I'm going to drag this guy and drop him in our document. It's going to automatically size the image to the height of my document here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make him a little bit larger. So I'm going to just zoom out a touch, and I'm going to hold my Shift and Option keys. That'll be Shift and Alt for the PC users. And I'm going to make him quite a bit larger. Maybe, I don't know. We can always come back in, you'll see here in a second, and make him even larger. But I want to kind of make this image so I see the yellow stripes down here at the bottom, right there on his forearm, and the top of his head almost being clipped by the top of the document. I may even tilt this a little bit just so I get more of a diagonal running from the top of the back of his head to kind of his shoulders, something like that. We'll see how this looks. And I'm going to enter return to commit that change. Like I said before, this is dragged in, you can see here as this object from the Creative Cloud. So I can always hit Command or Control T and free transform and scale this up or down. In fact, you can see it's smart enough to know we're not just at a straight 100%, we're at 128% now. So that's just letting you know that Photoshop's, it remembers what we're working on here. What I want to do is I want to cut him out essentially, and a couple different things we can do here. I could go into a document with him and cut him out, so I could like convert this to a smart object, and maybe I'll do that. I'm going a little off script here, and it's scary to do that. So I'm going to right click on this and convert it to a smart object, because then I can double click on the smart object. You can see it's going to open up the entire image as a different document. The reason that I'm thinking about doing this is because if we cut him out, just that little piece of him, and then we realize later on we want to make him larger or smaller, we're going to have to readjust our cut all over again. Now I do know that pretty much the area I need to cut out is, not right click, the area I need to cut out is somewhere about here. So down here near his waist, I don't even care how that shows up or if that cuts out well or not. I just don't care about it. I'm going to select my quick selection tool, and we're going to use the new artificial intelligence empowered select subject here in Photoshop. I'm going to see what kind of job this does. I don't know. We'll see here in a second. Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
And it does an okay job. I mean, it recognizes he's there. We got to clean up the edges a little bit. So I think I will.
Interesting it didn't select the oxygen tank.
Well, it's such a drastically different color,
Right.
I guess. But it is interesting that it got the darkness of this sort of lapel on his jacket, and it still recognize the difference there.
it's in the
So that's pretty cool. So what I like to do here, this is the part of the video where I normally speed things up. You can use select and mask for something like this. I still think it's a little bit faster for me in the way I work to either use quick selection and just go in and begin adding little bits and pieces like this. And I know the select and the quick selection tool within select and mask is the same as the quick selection tool out here. There's just something about it. It works right in my mind if I do it this way. But you can see here there's this whole straight line along his little oxygen mask. For this, you can even use something like the polygonal lasso tool. Hold down Shift and just say, you know what, I'm going to add that whole bit there to my selection, and boom, seal the selection off, and there you go. And for that matter, you can use the regular lasso tool. I can utilize my Wacom tablet here, and I can say, you know what, I want to get this whole strap. And by the way, this does not have to at all be perfect. You can hold down Alt-Option, you can subtract. Straighten out my tablet here so I'm drawing straight lines, not weird funky lines. And then I'm just going to add. There we go, something like that. Just loop that. And I would go around. Like I said, I don't really care about down here by his waist. None of that's really going to matter for us. Down here by the base of his oxygen tank, this is where I'm going to start considering adding to my selection again. I'm just going to try to get down here. You know, this is all rough. We're going to refine this whole selection in just a moment. Right, so I can just go and I'm just going to pick off this rounded edge sort of bit by bit and piece by piece. This does a couple things. If I mess up a selection or I select too much, Command or Control Z, I can just undo it and redo that one stroke rather than focusing on getting it perfect in one initial, you know, kind of swoop of the hand.
Right, so it's about kind of refining your selection piece by piece.
Exactly, piece by piece here.
Flexibility.
And then we're going to refine again when we get into select and mask. So at this point, you know, I can, whatever. This honestly is probably be better suited for select, or not select and mask, the quick selection at this point. But sometimes I take the road less traveled. And
that's right.
You know what, where the heck am I? But here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and loop-de-doop across the top of this oxygen tank. There we go.
Ready for an easy question?
I'm ready. Hit me with whatever.
I think it's easy. We need answers about the banana.
So the banana is. I'll show you the banana as soon as I finish with the selection. I just don't want to. I don't want to go messing with the banana and lose my selection and then be sad. Not sad on stream. I can cry alone tonight in the hotel room, but I don't want to do it on stream. All right, and then here for the back side of the oxygen tank, again, it's prime pickings for the polygonal lasso tool. Just hold down Shift, just that nice straight edge. Give it to me. There we go. Look at that. And then I'll come in here on the little strap hanging off and take that lasso tool once again. And again, guys, it really, you're going to see in a little bit, the selection does not at all have to be perfect. Select a mask is going to do a lot to help us, and you're going to realize we really don't need a perfect selection on a lot of these edges. All right, so I'll just come over here. I do want to get rid of like big bits of the background like that, though. All right, the hair is kind of, I mean, it's okay. We'll clean it up a little bit later. And I'll just come down here along the front of his head, voila. And then a lot of times, hanging out around the eye is eyebrow and other pieces of the face. Pieces of the face are always important to include in any type of project you're working on because they're usually
important features.
It's an essential element of the head, I find. The front of the head is the most important part of the head. All right. There we go. That's probably about close enough. Maybe I always say that and then I always make one adjustment. It's like adding the word final. We've all seen that meme, right, where you add the word final and then final 2 and then final 3 and then you start cursing and swearing and
use this one.
Exactly. All right, I'm just going to clean up my selection roughly. All right, so we have a selection around our firefighter. Let me lock this selection up as a mask and then I'll get to the banana tool. All right, so what we would do at this point is now I would enter select and mask. And we will begin the process of cleaning this up just a little bit. We really don't need to do a lot to it. And again, I'm going to show you just how much we're going to clean up later. But maybe what I'm going to be most concerned with is the hair. Now, because there's no edge light, and the edge light is going to be the light that comes from behind you just to give like a little outline of light around the edge of your hair and provide some background separation. It's really not much of that. So this is going to be a tough job for anything. Heck, it's a tough job for the human eye just to see the edge. Let's try the refine edge brush. I'm going to make it the brush tool a little bit smaller. I'm using my square bracket keys. And you know what? It's actually, see, sometimes the computer is smarter than the human mind. Because I think it's actually picking out a decent amount. Okay, not bad. I mean, not perfect, but not bad. We'll use the brush tool. We'll come back in here and we'll fill some of that back in up to the edge. Again, we're going to end up tweaking and adjusting these edges later on. And then almost always, around the eyebrow, we need a little We need to show it a little bit of love to give it some edge fidelity. There we go, something like that. That's perfect. And I think that's pretty good. One thing I think I'll do at this point is I'll use some of these global refinements. A lot of times when I'm looking to take a very rough selection and make it a little bit less rough, but still not perfect, global refinements are really nice. They're nice for a lot of things, but this is one thing I particularly like to use them for. I'm gonna boost smoothing, maybe to around 20, 25. I don't know, it's a little off the cuff here. And I think I'm gonna bump the feathering up a little bit. And feathering, it's usually a bad idea to add feathering to a selection, but not always, because in Select a Mask, we have this contrast slider, and we can really pump the contrast up. And I know I should probably zoom in a little bit here so you can see what's going on, like around the tank up here. You can see how we're really getting a pretty clean edge. We do still have some of the background. Don't worry about that. We're gonna get rid of that. I'm more or less concerned with it looking like the top of a tank and having a nice rounded shape with some, there's some texture. Like right there, you can see it, there's a little dip. And here as well, a little dip, but look at the rest of the tank. These are dips and gullies and cut marks as well, because this is not a brand new tank. This thing has some use. So what I'll do here, I think we're good. We're good with this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to move down here, and I'm gonna output my selection here to a new layer with layer mask, right there, voila. I could decontaminate color, but in this case, the bad idea. Sometimes decontaminate color is just what the doctor ordered, but right here, no. All right, so remember, this is still just our smart object. So we'll go File, and we'll choose to save this. So I'm gonna go Save, just straight up. I'm thinking too far ahead here. And I'm gonna close it. We're gonna come back to this later. And you can see we now have him isolated over our background. Is it a perfect selection? No. But is it good enough? I think so. All right, let's talk about the banana tool, and then we're going to continue on with the video. So the banana tool is actually this tool. It's the triple dot, the ellipsis, whatever it's supposed to be, that allows you to edit the toolbar here in Photoshop. So if I go Edit Toolbar, and I believe you hold down Command and Shift when you hit the Done button, and it will give you the banana, something like it. Maybe you just hold Shift. Hold on, if I hold down Alt or Option, I believe, yeah, it gets rid of the banana. But if you hold down Shift and hit Done, you get the banana.
So just a little Easter egg in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little Easter egg. Doesn't necessarily do anything, but it adds a little pop of color to an otherwise ocean of gray when you're looking at the Photoshop UI. It just makes me happy to see it down there. I don't even really necessarily like bananas, but I like that one. So there we go. We've got that. I think what I want to do is I've tilted an angle into this. That's great. I'm going to use the crop tool now, but I'm not going to use it to crop my image. I'm going to use it to expand my image. And I want to expand the image upward. I want to open up some space above him. Notice Photoshop's smart enough to know you still have image that's down there that's hidden sort of outside of the document. That's great. I'm just going to move up until my little height marker tells me about 1980. We landed on 1980 on the dot. Nice. I'm going to commit to that. That's how we do things around here. And then I'm going to Command or Control T. Let's adjust him a little bit more. So I think I'm going to make him a touch bigger. I think I'm going to tip him a little bit more. And I know I'm going to put the word London up here. I believe this is a London firefighter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is, at least the helmet he was wearing was not of the American variety. So I'm gonna leave him here because I want to add a big word London up top. And I think right about there, that's probably good. Something like that. And whoop, make sure I grab my selection tool, and I'm gonna use my arrow keys, nudge him over a little bit, move him kind of into place where I want him to be. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a black and white layer to this guy. I'm going to do that by collapsing my libraries panel first and foremost, opening up adjustments and choosing black and white layer. Can you see that? Black and white layer right there. We're going to clip this black and white layer to him because see, it made the background white. We don't want that. We only want it to affect him. So I'm going to use the hotkey Command Option. That would be Control Alt and the letter G. There we go. Now the black and white layer is only attacking him and not the background. I'm going to use the preset here. Remember, the black and white adjustment layer does have presets that can render some pretty cool results. And what I want to do here is I want to go maximum white. And what that's going to do is just make sure his skin is as bright as possible. This is going to be very helpful when we go ahead and perform our double exposure. Having an important part of your photo be very light for the particular technique we're using. So I'm going to make that face super bright. All right, next what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a levels adjustment here as well, and I've got some settings here written in front of me. I am going to boost the black point to around 20-ish. So I'm just looking to increase contrast, see how that's making the jacket nice, and just gives it that extra, that snap. And that's a snap that I like. And then we're going to take the white point, we're going to drag that back to about 230. Now that is brightening up the background, so we'll clip this as well. Now you may be thinking, how can I clip it to the firefighter when there's already a clipping mask? Well, the beautiful thing about this is clipping masks just flow together. So if I use that same Command Option or Control-Alt-G hotkey, it does clip it above black and white, but it really clips it to that artwork layer all the way underneath, and does so beautifully, might I add. All right, now that we have that, I think before we do the real double exposure, I may just drag in the background image and get that kind of in place. Let's open up our libraries here. I'm going to drag in this shot of London. And you can see very, very London. You got Big Ben, you got Westminster, you got the double-decker bus. If there's another image that portrays London better than that, I'm not sure what it is.
We're really doubling down on London.
Exactly. It's very, very British. And I was sitting next to a British woman on my way out here, so it's sort of a British state of mind. So there we go. We've got the shot of London, and I'm going to try playing with some blend modes here. I think I know which one's going to work for me, but I'm going to go ahead and try something like screen. That makes most of it go away, but kind of an interesting effect, right? Hey,
right.
It's not really what we want here, but hey, an interesting side note, right, that we can come back to later.
So this is a really important part of this kind of double exposure effect right here. I mean, it's one technique, just using the blending mode, and already you can.
And it's a very simple, exactly. And this isn't even the image that's going to be double exposure. This is just an image that's going to be a background element. But you can see it performs a double exposure. And what you can do, because it's just using a blend mode, you can drag that image around. Maybe you're saying, you know what, I really want Big Ben to be in there. I want Big Ben to stick him in the ear. There you go, right? Or maybe I want the bus to be down there on his shoulder. There you go, great. Or I want to see more of the Abbey. Whatever it might be, right? And you have the option to do all that. It's so fast and it's so easy. I'm just going to get us back to where we were. I want to drag this down beneath him, and that's going to kind of make it disappear. Reason is, our background's probably a little too bright. So let me hit OK. Let me double check this again. All right, we've set this to the blend mode of lighten. I don't know if I mentioned that. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. We're going to go to the solid color layer here, and now we're going to begin just trying to make this a little darker, right? And you can see we're getting something showing up back there, but it's very bizarre coloring and things like that. So let's not use yellow. Let's just start to make it less bright in terms of just gray, a desaturated color, something like that. I think that probably looks pretty cool. Something, I don't know, right around there. We can always adjust our opacity later. I'm going to select this London layer. I think I want to make this black and white as well. So what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and add adjustments. Let's go, how do I want to do it? You know what? Let's work on the exposure, or the double exposure on him. We'll come back to the background. Sometimes it's easier to add the background after the fact. We've learned a couple little double exposure tricks. Let's put this one on the back burner for now. Okay. And let's play with the double exposure of him. I'm going to drag in, you guessed it, another photo of London. I've got Helsinki. Oh, there we go. London night. This is a really cool aerial shot of London. And this is going to be the first photo that we're going to combine with him. So we'll have some fun with this. I'm going to maybe make this a little bit bigger. And this one I'm going to set to the blend mode of lighten. And you can see, there it is, it's overlaying him. I think I'm going to go back now. I'm being distracted by the background. I'm going to set this back to a very, very light yellow. Like I said, we'll get back to that in a moment. But now we have a better idea now of how this is going to look, right? So I can take London Night, and I know what I want to do. I really want Tower Bridge there. I want that to be sort of the focal point, right? And this little Easter egg looking building, I'm not sure what it is, but it's interesting. I think it's the police station, actually. Or the London Police. I think it's their HQ. I could be wrong about that. I'm not from London. So we've got that. I've got the Tower Bridge. We got the river running right down the middle, looking cool. And what I want to do is, I don't know if you can see it on the stream, but up here, there's a streak of white from probably the sky or the clouds. We need to kind of clean that up a little bit. We got some other stuff we probably need to mess around with. But the first thing I want to do is I also want to convert this to black and white. You don't need to convert your images in a double exposure to black and white, but it kind of helps simplify the process a little bit. You can always add some color later and things like that. I like to, for the most part, convert them to black and white. So I'm going to come over here to adjustments, and I'm going to use my favorite black and white technique in Photoshop, and that is the gradient map adjustment layer right there. So we'll go add a gradient map. That looks kind of cool, right? We're dealing with a firefighter. Looks kind of interesting. But I'm going to stick with the script here and go black and white. So I got a black and white gradient. You can see, there we go. We've got that. And I think what I want to do here is, I'll probably take the solid black. You know what, I'm gonna leave it solid black. Again, because it's an adjustment layer, I can always come back and tweak it later. Sometimes I get the temptation to kind of fade the shadows, but I think in this case, contrast is gonna be a really good thing for us. Okay, what we can do is begin masking Tower Bridge now. So I'm gonna zoom in, and this is where we really flesh out the double exposure. You can see, by the way, our edges still far, far, far from perfect, right? You can see a lot of that kind of gritty nastiness on the edges. Don't worry. As we settle this whole thing in, all that's gonna go away. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to mask the London night by adding a layer mask. See right down there, add layer mask, voila. This is where, by the way, having some kind of stylus, tablet type apparatus is just very helpful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab my brush tool, and you can right click at any point and you can choose from a whole plethora of different brushes. Some of these are custom ones I loaded in, but Adobe's done a great job of getting a really nice assortment of brushes for you. So I'm gonna go with just probably one of these, I don't know, soft mechanical, maybe 100, that's probably good. And I'm gonna reduce the opacity of the brush up here. Not the flow, but the opacity. There's reasons for that, but for now we're just gonna stick with about 50% opacity. And what I wanna do is paint with the color black. You can see my foreground color is black. And I wanna get rid of the shot of London in areas that are very important to him or his personality. We kind of were joking around about the face being important, using my square brackets there to make the brush a little bit larger. But the face is very important. So I'm gonna sort of dust away the city of London from his face, right? And maybe just a little bit from his hair, but you can still definitely see it's there, right? And it's just sort of fading in. Then you can go down and look, and I think the rest of this is pretty good. Maybe I'll take a little bit off of his tank, something like that, and then the strap out here, maybe I want that to hang out and still be pretty solid black. It just looks weird with a chunk of the city out there. And then I think also I'm gonna really attack the background a little bit. So I'm gonna set my opacity back to 100%. I'm still painting with black, make my brush a little bit larger, and I'm just gonna paint kind of all over here with black, right? Just roughly, in case there's just some wayward cloud or streak of, you know, brightness, we just get rid of that stuff, right? So it's just kind of a catch-all for some of that. But you can see here our mask, it's nothing perfect. It's just a rough, you know, we went in there with a paintbrush and, you know, slash and burn kind of thing. Very nice, very quick, very easy. Now that we've done that, what do we want to do here? Maybe I will, maybe I'll make the shot of London. I talked about removing contrast. I'm looking at it now. I might want to add a little contrast. You can see we've got this fade on his head, and what that is the city of London stops at the horizon, and then the sky begins. And we just have a little bit of that sky there. When it gets converted to black and white, it makes kind of that medium light gray. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop a levels adjustment, and I'm just gonna drag a little bit in just to bump the blacks just a little bit kind of like that. That's probably good. Somewhere right around there is interesting. And what I wanna do, we wanna add a third image. So this won't be a simple double exposure. I think we're gonna go with the triple exposure.
Oh.
And then there's also obviously gonna be the stuff for the background.
We've taken it to the next level.
We're taking it to the next level. I'm gonna go back to my libraries, and I have, you probably guessed it at this point, another shot of London. I'm gonna drag this in. And this also, by the way, you can see how the first shot of London was like this beautiful golden hour shot, right? Aerial photo, beautiful colors, oranges, all that. This next shot is just kind of like a noonday sun, very harsh, very blue, very much not the same color palette, aesthetic of the first London shot. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna rotate this, because the idea is gonna be, we kind of want it to look like the skyline of London is coming out of his shoulders. Almost like, this firefighter is so incredible, he carries the city of London on his back.
On his back.
Right? There you go, you saw it coming before.
And now is this a good, I guess, reason why you choose to do black and white typically in double exposure?
Exactly.
This is kind of
Because
illustrates the point right now. Is
you'll
you have all these tones,
exactly.
colors from different
That's what
shots
I was
and
getting at,
everything.
but I forgot to say it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for bringing me back. Yeah, exactly. So that's what we do. Do we have a giveaway happening?
Are you
soon?
ready to do this?
Dude, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I was born ready.
I think we're gonna give it about 1 minute. So if you have not participated in chat, asked a question, given a kudos, just said hi to a friend or something, go ahead and log in to be.net/live and join the chat, ask some questions, because in about 1 minute, if you've joined the chat, you're gonna be in the running for this wonderful plush Photoshop pillow. It's extremely soft.
Very soft. Very soft.
Bespoke, made just for you. And we're gonna give that away in about 1 minute. I've seen a lot of kudos. A lot of people are coming here because they recognize you and the work that you do on YouTube.
Thanks, guys.
Tutvid.
Smart object first.
Yeah, we did have some questions about like
hit me with a couple
your
questions.
zooming, how you do that.
So that's I get this question so much. This company should sponsor my channel because I get this question so much. It's a little app. Sadly, it's for the Mac only, but there might be an equivalent for Windows. It's called Zoom It. And if you Google Zoom It, it's one of the things that'll show up. Like Zoom It as one word, or Zoom It app. Add Zoom It app Mac, and you're sure to find it. But that's how I'm doing that. It's just a little hotkey. I just use Control Z. Because see, on the Mac, Command Z is undo. So I have my little extra Control Z that doesn't do anything. And I just said, you know what? Control Z. There we go. That's my zoom tool.
Cool.
So as I'm working, I can very quickly just boom.
Yeah. We had another question earlier about what the thinking behind using a gradient adjustment layer to give you black and white is against.
So I've done videos on this. I did a video about a year ago comparing just the straight desaturation, which is kind of a crappy black and white. It's just it's the utilitarian tool in Photoshop. Just you remove the color, no thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, it's great because it's a hotkey, and if you need to make something black and white for like a high pass adjustment, it's the way to go. But for a finished black and white image, very much not the way to go. I also compared it to that was one of the ways I created a black and white image. Then I used the black and white adjustment layer, which is pretty good. The cool thing about the black and white adjustment layer is you have all those color channels.
Yep.
So you can say the skin needs to be a little bit brighter. We all have a little red and yellow in our skin, so bump those up a little bit and you're good to go. And there are also a lot of cool presets. However, there was another way I did it. I wonder if maybe I took it into Camera Raw and desaturated in there, or use the black and white and the HSL sliders in there. I don't remember. But the fourth way, and the way that ended up being my favorite, was using gradient maps, whatever it is. The way that gradient maps the color black to the darkest part of your photo, and white to the brightest part of your photo, and just that beautiful gradation of everything in between. It's just I don't know, it's great. And you can so quickly and easily just take the black color stop on the gradient map and say, you know what, don't make this black, make it very, very, very dark gray. I'm talking like 5% brightness, right?
Yeah.
So very dark gray. And you get just this beautiful, smooth, harkens back to like these retro style black and white photos. You want to tone down the highlights, take the white color stop and make it just a very, very, very light gray, like a 95% brightness value. And you just get a great, it's like a high contrast while simultaneously being low contrast or faded black and white photo. And then you drop like a levels or a curves adjustment layer on top of that, boop, a little bit of contrast adjustment there, and it's just like,
amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
So cool thing about Photoshop, there's about 10 ways to do everything, but it's really, really amazing.
You
And
can you can also go into the channel mixer and you can take monochrome on and get a great black and white there as well, and still have some adjustments there. It's a little bit more complex to adjust in there, but that can be a nice black and white.
Awesome. Well, we have our winner. Does anybody want to hear who the winner is for this plush PS Pillow? Would you like to announce it?
The
Got it right here.
We've got a Mr. Robert Sullivan.
Robert Sullivan, come on down.
That's kind of a British sounding name, isn't it? I feel like Sullivan's very like royal family.
It could be. Robert,
you
congratulations.
get a pillow today and we're knighting you tomorrow.
That's right. I also believe I only saw this once, so again, it still could be open. Somebody mentioned that was, I think, City Hall, not the police station.
No, I think, well, I'll show you what I think. I think this is City Hall, the big bloopy shaped building. That's not the same as the one there on the water. The one on the water is a bit shorter. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Who am I to talk? I'm not a London resident.
We're going to figure this out by the end of the stream.
By the end of the stream, somebody's got to do some Google research and break down the skyline of London
right.
for us.
Well, congratulations, Robert. We'll be getting your details and we'll send you this pillow. Just also want to remind everybody before we get back into the double, triple exposure with the really nice gradient mapping, black and white tones, that we are doing a challenge today. The challenge is to create an animated GIF using the timeline panel in Photoshop. So if you're just joining us or if you've just joined in the last 30 minutes, there's a little under an hour to create your artwork and submit it to us. All of those details are in the challenge tab, which is right next to the chat tab on behance.net/live. So go ahead and get creating. We're gonna take a look at our favorites. We're gonna take a look at all of them in less than an hour. The favorite of this stream will get a 1-year Creative Cloud subscription for free. So a really cool, fun way to create some artwork. Use the timeline panel, learn a little something about it, and you might win some cool prizes.
Cool.
We're
Yeah,
excited to see the work.
Sounds good to me. I wish I could be the one to win the year of free CC. All right, cool. Are we ready to?
Oh, here we go.
Ready to move on? The
I
tall
also
round
think
one is
it's
a commercial building. I also think. Oh.
By Norman Foster.
All right,
We're
guys,
getting into the architects
like every
now.
good chat room, there's just as much confusion coming out of the chat room as the two of us.
Nathaniel is the perfect guest, knows a lot, knows how to speak clearly.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle. Speaking of brushes,
Man, I love your avatar, Kyle.
Kyle
and I'm not
Webster
just saying
here.
that because you said something nice about. Well, a little bit I am. A little bit I'm saying it because you said something nice, but a lot because it's really cool.
Yeah.
Zoom it makes a version for Windows also.
Cool.
There you go. Okay.
We're learning some things.
Win-win.
All right.
Cool. All right, guys.
Back into it.
Let's carry on.
All right.
So here we are. I've got to London. The main thing I'm looking for here when I line this up and angle it on his back is I want a good point where the skyline can sort of begin jutting out of his head. I don't want it to look like a horn sticking out of his head, maybe a little bit like a horn, but not that much. And I think I'm gonna align the edge of this building or try to get that edge lined up with kind of the edge of his head. So I'm gonna just move it down, maybe use my arrow keys and kind of nudge it into place as best as I can. Something sort of kind of like that I think will work. Enter return is going to commit our change. I think I actually want to drag this levels adjustment layer up. So this was the levels adjustment layer that we added to. By the way, isn't this so annoying when the adjustment layer gives you all this extra gray space? I don't know if this happens to everybody, but it happens to me all the time. I wish it just kind of defaulted to that position.
It's resting space.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little break for your eyes. You can drift off. Anyway, I'm going to drag this levels adjustment up above London. You can see we're giving it a kick of contrast like we did before. I want to clip this to London City. Command-Option-G. That'd be Control-Alt-G for those of us in the Windows ecosystem. And we also want to convert this to black and white. And here this is interesting because there's a preset kind of tailor-made for what we've got going on here. I'm going to move my properties panel up over here. There's a lot of blue in this image. I want to blow out the sky. A lot of times when you are working on a double exposure or triple exposure, there needs to be a point of the image that drifts off to the background, the new background, or whatever you're creating the double exposure over. And a favorite way of artists to do this is utilizing a sky. You have a photo of like a forest, you get the tops of the trees, you got the sky, and the sky goes to the edge of the photo. Well, if I can convert the entire sky to white, that's a bit of the image that I can use a blend mode or something like that just to bam, drop out, and then I have what looks like just trees perfectly masked over a background, right? So we're gonna try to utilize that. If I can change the contrast of London to make the sky much, 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 much brighter, Photoshop might do most of the work for me right here, and I think I've got just the tool here under presets. I'm gonna choose high contrast blue filter, and that's looking pretty good, looking pretty close to what I want, right? You see that? I don't know why I moved the properties panel over. I get fidgety sometimes. I am going to clip this black and white layer, Command-Option-G, Control-Alt-G, just like that. Now it's a little brighter than I want it to be. We can play around with that. Maybe I could open up levels again. I could say, you know what, make the overall image a little darker, maybe bring it more in line with the rest of our double exposure. And I know what you're thinking. This looks terrible because what's going on up here and everywhere else. Don't worry. Be patient, guys. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there, I promise. What I want to do is let's try converting London City. Let's try lighten for this as well. Not quite what I want. Maybe multiply is going to do that. That'll help knock away some of the sky. We've got a lot of blackness going on down here, but we're going to end up masking this. Obviously, we want to kind of clean up what's going on up there by the top as well. Yeah, so we'll mess around with that. We'll play with that and kind of fade things in by hand. Again, this is where the Wacom comes into play and is very, very useful for us. Let me see. I keep cheating, by the way, guys, and taking a peek at my notes. I'm trying to keep us on track here because I'm very, very scatterbrained.
There's a lot to do.
All right, so we're going to begin with London City. We're going to mask this in, and we're going to begin creating a little bit of a splatter effect as well. I'm going to zoom in up here by the top of his head, and I'm going to apply a mask using a little Add Mask button by the bottom of the Layers panel. We're working here on London City still. I'm going to grab my brush tool. We can still go with a large soft edge brush. This is 500 pixels, a little too large. I'll go down to maybe around 100, very soft edge still. And I'm just gonna paint with black. By the way, I've got my opacity. It's set back to 100%. So we're rolling at 100%. I'm gonna paint this away, paint this away, paint this away. And as I come down to his head, kind of like this, maybe I'll make the brush even smaller here. I'm just gonna try to ride it right into the head. However blurred or softened or really whatever sticks out, that really doesn't matter quite as much. The key is just in the transition. And we're going to be doing a lot here to kind of soften that transition a little bit more. In fact, Yeah, I'm gonna make the brush a little bit larger. I'm just gonna kind of fade the back end down, just like this, right? You can see how we're getting rid of some of this stuff. And then out here, this is all ridiculous.
Yep.
Get rid of the walkie-talkie building. The building that was lighting people's cars and stuff on fire. There we go. Look at that. And I may also get rid of that. See that funky cloud hanging out there? It's just, guys, John Wooden, the very famous coach of the UCLA basketball Bruins. Success is in the details. Success is in the details. He didn't win 10 championships for nothing, did he? There we go. You know, I heard a story once that when he would bring new players in, the first thing he taught them how to do is the proper way to put their socks on.
Oh yeah, it all starts with the socks.
Proper way to put your socks on. If that's not being detail-oriented, my friends, I don't know what is.
And that's what it's all about in Photoshop.
The
details.
Details.
All
right, so what I want to do, now that I've kind of faded that into place, we want to begin mixing the edges, and we're going to use a splatter brush to do that. But I think actually before I do that, I want to address what the sort of the elephant in the room, and that is these really nasty edges. And now I'm remembering why I shouldn't have gone off script earlier, but we're going to kind of play this, we're going to fly blind a little bit here. I'm going to double click to get back into my smart object. Normally, if I have my layer mask out on the other part of the image, I could see this perfectly overlaid. This is also part of the beauty of editing a mask and something like select a mask. You have an option specifically to see what's going on. But here, this is such a cool trick, guys. Something, if you do any kind of compositing, selections, masking in Photoshop, if you take nothing else away from this live broadcast, this is the trick. Let me show you here. All right, so here around his face, grab your brush tool. You select the mask because we need to clean up the edges of the mask, right? I can go in there and just paint it away. Well, no, obviously we don't want to do that. What we can do is change the blend mode of the brush to soft light. And Photoshop's smart enough to just say, look, I don't want to get rid of the skin, just the dark background. And there you go. We're going to have a nice, beautiful edge, just like that. I'm going to make the brush a little smaller here. Now, if you got a little stubborn bit of, stuff under his nose there, we can go ahead and set the blend mode back to normal. We can scooch in there. Just knock that little bit out, just like that. See, it's easy, right? It's all easy. If only we knew the right way to do it. There we go. And I'm just gonna, roughly clean up around his jacket. I'm not too terribly concerned down here for the rest of this. Remember his face, this is gonna be the focal point, so I'm most concerned with having, things looking decent. Back here, this is all gonna get faded in. Oh, I guess here, the top of the air tank, that could be cleaned up a little bit more, and it looks like my mask. I was trying to play it earlier like the mask didn't bite off too much, but I kind of thought, like if I'm being honest with myself, that it bit off too much, and now I'm seeing, yes, it did bite off too much. So I'm just going to zoom in here, reset my brush to the normal blend mode, and I'm just going to get rid of some of that, just like that.
Perfect.
This too, ladies and gents, I'm telling you, I couldn't do this with a mouse. I couldn't do this with a trackpad. Oh, by the way, another cool trick when you're masking or painting, hit the letter R or hold the letter R. You can rotate your image just like that, let go of R, you're right back to the brush tool. Very cool, isn't it?
Yeah, make the app do the work for you.
Exactly. Isn't Michael great, guys? Look at this. He's a perfect compliment. There we go.
We got a lot of compliments on this soft light brush.
It's so useful. It's so useful.
Game
it's a
changers.
lifesaver.
Yeah.
It is a lifesaver. I mean, not, you know what I'm saying. I'm speaking, it's not literally a lifesaver. It's figuratively a lifesaver.
This is a lifesaver right here.
Yeah,
we
right.
hope.
There you
or
go.
an actor.
Yeah. All right, so now when we come back, you can see we just have a much nicer edge, and maybe there's still a little bit there on the nose, and if I'm gonna be picky, which I am, I'm gonna add a mask to this, just direct to the smart object. And you really shouldn't divide your masks like this, but I'm gonna break that rule because you guys are a special audience, and I know you're smart enough to remember that this is not the way we normally do this. And I'm just gonna get rid of that because, well, quite frankly, it's bugging me, and if it's bugging me, I'm sure it's bugging you. There we go.
You can't pass those opportunities if something doesn't feel right in the gut. Just take care of it right then.
All right.
Come back.
So now that we've done that, I want to begin the splatter. And recently, Adobe, I'm pretty sure these are included. Somebody out there can correct me if I'm wrong. But in the special effects brushes, there's this guy, Kyle, who made a bunch of splatter brushes.
He's in our chat.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. Kyle. Was Kyle the one that gave me the compliment before?
He was, yeah.
Oh, Kyle, here we go. See? What's good? We'll come back to you in droves, my friend. So these splatter brushes, we're going to use a couple of them to work on this edge and work this edge out a little bit. So I'm going to go with the first one here. Now, the one thing about Kyle's splatter brushes is they lay down splatter heavy. And that's not with a capital H. That's in all caps. They lay down splatter heavy. So I'm going to select the splatter brush. we're gonna do a couple things here. We're gonna select the little brush folder here to open up our brush tip options, and I'm going to increase the spacing. It's gonna essentially weaken the brush a little bit, just make it a little more controllable for us. And I'm also gonna go into shape dynamics here. And you can see, because I'm using a tablet, see how the brush, it's like doing all this funky, like rotating and flattening out and stuff. Here in Shape Dynamics, I just want to change the control from pen tilt, that's why that's happening, to either pen pressure, or really honestly, for something like this, I'll just kind of keep it off. Just because you have the tool, the tablet that has 2,048 levels of pressure or whatever it is, doesn't mean you need to use them all the time. So I'm gonna just close brush settings, and what we'll do now is I'm working on the firefighter. I'm not gonna shut off London. I'm gonna keep working on London. I'm gonna use my bracket keys, and I'll make the brush a little, it's still a little bit bigger, and I'm gonna begin splattering the backside of the firefighter. Now I'm gonna make the brush a little bit smaller. We're gonna continue with the splattering. My goal here as I do this, guys, is you can see this back edge of his head and the sort of hood behind his head. You can see that through the city of London. I want to make that disappear. It's going to help this fade come together just beautifully. Now you're saying, couldn't you have just used one of the big soft edge brushes? Well, yes, and maybe that would have been a nice way to go. But see, by doing it this way, we retain some of those little artifacts, just that little successes in the details. What
Texture,
can I say?
yeah, texture makes an
yeah,
image,
exactly.
for sure.
There you go. And then I'll add some texture here to the top of the water tank. I'll kind of all over that, and maybe even the top of his head. The only reason I'm doing that here on the top of his head is because I really don't like that, the kind of fade there. There's areas of flat color, and this splattering is going to add, you guessed it, texture to an otherwise untexturized area. Now, remember this. We can go in, hit the letter X, that's gonna flip our foreground and background colors. We're now painting with white, and we can begin painting some of this stuff back in and reintroducing that texture in a very organic way. So we're not constrained by those lines. In fact, the only line we're constrained by is that mask we placed on the smart object, which is within this smart object, and it's kind of complicated, so we're not going to get into that right now. But just know that we've now blended the top side of him. I could say, you know what, I want to continue blending him down here. I need to make sure I flip my foreground and background colors. I want to continue blending down here, just add a little bit of texture, maybe to the bottom of the tank, maybe around here. Remember I said these edges aren't that important, because I knew I was probably going to go in and do some of this, right? Where we just break it up a little bit, right? Just break it up a little bit, make it a little more interesting, something like that. Looks a little like Bravehearty, right? Doesn't it? It almost looks like he's got a mullet made of the buildings back there. All right, I'm gonna come up here to the new photo of London, and we're basically gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna begin just splattering this building sticking out here, just to help get rid of, I don't want that very not organic looking fade. I want it to look, when I say organic, I just mean very natural looking. If I stumbled upon a double exposure in the forest, voila, right? I don't want it to look like a machine has made it.
When's the last time you stumbled upon a
You would be
double exposure in
surprised.
the forest?
You would be surprised.
That's where the inspiration strikes.
And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna paint back in. I'm using white as my foreground color now, painting some of that splattering back in. See how it's given us this look at, without that, it just looks like a totally different thing. With it, it looks right at home. All right, I'm going to once again paint with black, hit X to switch my foreground and background colors, and I'm gonna add a lot of texture here to these buildings on the top of the tank. Remember, the tank's very gritty, it's grungy, so anything overlaying it, inherently I want it to look kind of gritty and grungy. This is the kind of thing, I'm not even really thinking about it. I would have never mentioned it if I wasn't here on camera with you guys, but I know that my heart's telling me do that because I know it's supposed to be gritty and grungy. All right, another thing, the ear. The ear's bugging me. I wanna get rid of the ear. We could probably do this a number of ways. What I'm gonna try first, beneath the London night photo, I'm gonna try to use London night to cover this up, and you'll see how in a second, if this works the way I want it to. I'm going to add a levels adjustment here. I am going to take the white point right here, this is the output white point, and I'm gonna drag it all the way back. That's gonna fill everything beneath that levels adjustment with black, which, as you are correctly saying, destroys the image. But what I want to do is I want to invert my layer mask by hitting Command or Control I. That's going to set my layer mask to black. Now all I need to do, right click with my brush, I'm going to go back and choose a very soft edged brush. Let's go with 47 soft round, maybe we'll make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to set the opacity here of this to, I don't know, 40, 50%, something like that. And we want to set our foreground color to white. And we're just going to begin painting over the ear, right? So what's happened, and the reason that this is working, for those of you that are wondering, is because the London night photo is using the lighten blend mode, it is going to interact and cover up that stuff beneath it that's so much darker. The ear was showing through because it was so much brighter than that part of our London skyline. So by forcing it to become darker, London skyline covers it up. Now, of course, if we get London skyline, yeah, we're just gonna have a big black spot over his ear. But guess what? Doesn't matter, because London skyline is there to save the day. And I'm gonna make it a little bit darker there as well. Voila, just like that. We get rid of the ear, we hide the ear. It's just the power of blend modes.
Yeah.
When people talk about blending images, it's not just going in manually and having to paint and soft brush and blur and all of this, that, and the other. Blend modes, blend modes, blend modes. Very important. All right, let me see where I am here in my notes, guys. Do we have any questions there, Michael? Anything you've seen?
I did see Kyle actually mentioned about the brushes. He said if you like splatter brushes, Nathaniel, and you need more control, there are 50 more of them in the spatter set, which can be downloaded from the Get More Brushes link in your brushes panel. I know people have been asking a lot about the brushes.
Yeah, because they only give you a little tasty taste.
Yeah,
There's like
right.
4 or 5
they want you to
of them in
find
there.
more. Yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you, Kyle, for actually sharing that with everybody.
Exactly. Kyle, you are the man.
The man.
Very cool brushes. All right, so now comes a little hidden hotkey in Photoshop, and this is the Merge All Layers to New Layer. This is the long hotkey. It's a complex hotkey, but it's a very useful hotkey. Control-Shift-Alt and the letter E. On the Mac, that's Command-Shift-Option and the letter E. And you can see what we've got there. We've got everything up on a new layer. Doesn't that look so cool as a small thumbnail? I'm just looking at it on the monitor across the room there. Looks very cool from far away. You know, somebody told me once, you look good from a distance. As we get close, we still have some work to do. All right, so here for layer 1, I'm gonna go filter, I'm gonna go other, I'm gonna choose high pass, and we can do a few things with high pass. If you have a low pixel count in high pass, you're gonna sharpen the edges of the objects. Not really sharpen, but accentuate the edges of something like this. You can see all the detail it's bringing out. If you bump up the pixel count to something like 15, you're going to perform something very similar to the clarity slider in Lightroom or the Camera Raw editor. It gives like this nice mid-tone punch to your image. In this case, we've got our punchiness going, as I put it back to 15. We just want to accentuate the edges a little bit more. We want to infuse drama into this, right? This is the London firefighter. And I'm gonna go ahead and set this to the blend mode of soft light, and we have just given just this nice crispy little snappy snap to the whole image. And the beautiful thing about this is it's adding that crispiness to all of those little individual splatters we've created, the edges, everything. We've just kind of locked it in with this nice crispy layer of urethane we've applied over the whole thing.
Can we do a little off and on?
Yeah, for sure.
See the,
so there's before. Well, I should probably zoom in a bit so you can see.
It's a subtle
you can really
effect.
see the difference. It's very subtle. See his face? He's looking at you, and there it is after high pass. Before, after. Before, after. But this is the kind of thing when you look at very high-end photography out of like a medium format camera compared to just your standard DSLR. This kind of extreme sharpness in the face and very selective extreme sharpness, it's what sets apart a very cinematic imagery from just kind of like, whoa, that's a really nice photo. It will take stuff to like that next echelon of, that's not just good, that's great.
Amazing.
And that's, again, detail. Detail, detail. All right, so we did that. What do we want to do? All right, now we're going to go back to the background now that we've got this kind of set. In fact, I'm going to get rid of the London shot. Let's just do this from scratch all over again because I find sometimes it's faster to tear down and rebuild than try to pick up the pieces. All right, we're going to drag in this shot of London. You can see how it's already showing up as black and white. Don't worry about that. I'll show you what's going on here in a second. Make it just a little bit larger. Again, I'm holding down Shift and Alt. That's Shift and Option for those of us on the Mac. And there we go, I will commit my change. Now this actually looks kind of cool right out of the gate. Again, the beauty of Photoshop. You can do things 100 different ways, and this might be exactly perfect for that project you were working on. But for me, it's not. What's happening here is the gradient map up here that I have making the City of London black and white. It's not clipped to the City of London. Therefore, it is making every layer beneath it black and white. Check this out. If I go Command-Option-G, it is now just clipped to the City of London, therefore the beautiful color of this image shows through. However, you can see it now does not look nearly as cohesive as it did when it was all black and white. That again goes back to my point earlier about using black and white. All right, so I'm gonna select this. We're gonna open up our adjustments panel here, and I think I'm gonna apply a black and white layer, and you may be saying, you just got rid of black and white, what are you doing? Hang with me. We're gonna go high contrast blue filter, and you can see, I mean, look at how much that just changed. Even that black and white adjustment. How much just changed there when we did that. All right, this is just above our shot of Westminster Abbey, Big Ben, all this good stuff here. And what I wanna do, I wanna kind of fade this image a little bit. So I'm gonna select the black and white adjustment layer. boy, we're really stacking up the layers here, aren't we?
Right.
We're going to add a curves adjustment layer. Now, the curves, there's a lot of videos out there on how curves work. We're not going to necessarily get into it here, but just hang with me if you don't understand curves. We're going to select the black point right down here, this little point, and we're going to drag it straight up, and I'm going to keep dragging it up and keep dragging it up. Basically, I'm looking for output. I want that to equal like 210. I want to make this very, very subtle back there in the background. And we're doing that not by using a blend mode in this case, but simply by reducing contrast in the photo by lifting the blacks up as high as we can while still retaining some semblance of detail there in the back of what's going on here. And if it's still not enough for you, you can select the shot of London and we can reduce the opacity a little bit. You know, take it down to 50, 60%, maybe like 60. I'll probably roll with 70, something like that. Who's counting, right? All right, so now that I've done that, what do I want to do next? Hang on, guys, here. All right. This is where things start to get interesting. We're going to select all of our layers. So we're going to select, well, not all of them, almost all of them. I'm going to name this high pass as well, just so we know what's going on. I'm going to select high pass. I'm going to hold down shift and select down to the firefighter. So basically everything above that London City background. And I'm going to hit Command or Control G to group them up. And I'm going to name this group, I don't know, FF for firefighter, something like that. And at this point now, we're going to begin applying some color treatment to this. We're going to begin texturizing this, kind of making things a little bit more interesting. So I think what I'm going to do first is, well, we should probably begin by adding a layer mask. So we're going to go layer mask. And I want to get rid of the bottom of him. I want him to make him look like he's floating, although I mean, it does look kind of cool the way it is. Let's see here. Let's play with it. Let's see what we get. I'm going to boost the opacity of this brush back to 100%. Use my square bracket keys, make my brush a little bit larger. Hit the letter X. That's going to flip your foreground and background color. Black is now our foreground color. And we can just begin painting this away. So you can see, I mean, it's going to give us a little bit of a glow. Maybe you should make this even bigger, right? Maybe something like that. I guess that's kind of cool. Oh, we'll roll with that for now. You can always shift-click a mask, by the way, just to temporarily disable it.
And this mask is affecting everything inside that
exactly.
group. Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons that we just grouped everything up, because we can take it all and we can just, you know, kind of twist it and contort it. In this case, mask it as one solid object. And you may say, well, can you just merge everything to a new layer? Probably, but that's very destructive, number one. And number two, sometimes if you want to preserve all of your detail, sometimes when you merge everything into a new layer, blend modes don't carry through and continue working the way that they were. So it's just something to keep in mind. Sometimes it's more useful to group everything up and just know, yeah, I got everything right there in that layer group, voila. All right, so now that we've done that, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a gradient map to begin colorizing this. This is where things kind of get fun. So we're gonna go gradient map. It just looks so cool. I can't get over that.
The red's
it's very,
working,
very
yeah.
cool. And very simple. Simple is good sometimes. But you can go with like very cool different gradient maps that begin with very dark iterations of a certain color. In this case, a very, very, very dark pink. In fact, nearly black, going all the way up to a bright pink. It's not an ad campaign for T-Mobile, but maybe this is how T-Mobile does what they do. It's a very, very similar effect. We can go with something, well, not like that, like the red. That's pretty cool. You can go blue. Spotify had something very similar to this, where it was a very blue-green type thing in it. I don't know if they still run the ad campaign, but it was a few years ago they did something like that.
All their graphics.
And it was
like that.
exactly. It was something very, very similar to this. So what I want to do is I'm going to click on the pink stop here, and I'm going to give this the color. Let's go like a 0E1420. So this is like a very dark bluish. I think we're still in the blues there. I'm a little colorblind when it comes to blues and purples. That's why the hex code helps me out. And then for what was light green, I'm going to set this to something equally bright. I'm going to go FFF6DD. So this is just a very, very light, kind of beigey color. I'm going to hit OK now, and you can see before and after. So we've begun, we have started, is begun a word? Began? We've begun. Well, we have started. Yeah. We've started the coloring process. And what I want to try here, I'm going to try setting this to like multiply. Multiply is going to darken things up. It's going to infuse some contrast. Now you can see here, it almost looks like we're losing a little detail in the darks. Ooh, I don't like losing detail. Let's go open up Firefighter again. And remember we have that levels adjustment we added to him where we boosted the blacks. What happens if we just don't boost the blacks? Well, that's interesting. What happens if we take the black output and lift that up? Well, it helps if I actually lifted it up. It's not doing a lot for us. It's doing a little bit, and I think actually it's because of our London City shot, right? That's what we're actually seeing. Let's double-click on Gradient Map. Open up, we're gonna edit the black point here. So what happens if we wanna make it lighter? Well, we don't wanna go making it like 50% gray, that's really bad. But we can infuse a little brightness here, and it might be more controllable to just use the brightness option in the dialog, and just use your up arrow key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. Maybe I'll go to 10, 11, right around there, and I'm gonna hit OK. And there we go. We've infused just a touch. It doesn't need to be a lot. I still like when that's dark, but just a little. We got to show it a little bit of love in there. All right, so we applied our gradient map. Now what we're going to do is go selective color. Selective color is one of these really cool adjustment layers that does some stuff that pretty much nothing else in Photoshop does. I'm going to come down here to the blacks. We're going to target just the absolute darkest stripe of tonal value in the image. And I'm going to try to boost the blacks. I want to reduce the blacks maybe. Maybe I'll reduce the blacks a little bit. I'll go like -10 there on the blacks. I'm going to pour some cyan into the black, so I'll go like +20. With magenta, the opposite of magenta is green. I don't think magenta is necessarily what I want. I think I do want a little bit of green, maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 6, something like that, maybe a little less, maybe about 5, something like that. And then the opposite of yellow is blue. So I want to add a little blue into here. Maybe I'll go like -30-ish. That's a bit blue, and blue almost feels like, why are you doing this to a photo of a firefighter when the red looks so good? Blue is not what it should be. You're probably right, but let's keep going with this. And we can always come back to selective color because it's an adjustment layer and adjust it later. I'm going to now apply a LUT. This is the color lookup table adjustment layer in Photoshop. Sadly, not a lot of people use this. LUTs are very heavily used across film and video. So LUT is just short for lookup table. And you can load in, Adobe has a bunch of great presets, but you can even create a LUT. You can create LUTs here in Photoshop, in fact, and use them in video, but you can use LUTs that you've exported from other places as well, import them, and use them to treat your photos in Photoshop here as well. I'm gonna go for the candlelight.cube look, and you can see what this is doing. It's kind of taking all that blue, and like I expected, it's neutralizing it here for us. In fact, I'm gonna take it a step further. I'm gonna try setting this to multiply as well. Maybe, do I wanna reduce the opacity a little bit? I don't really like that. I'm gonna go back to selective color. I'm gonna get rid of that blue, like I kind of, in the back of my mind, I kind of thought I was gonna do that. And then I'm gonna just reduce the opacity of that a little bit. Kind of maybe knock it down to 70. That looks pretty good. We've got good contrast, foreground to background. And what I can also do, by the way, I can come back down here and say, you know what, background is just, I can see too much of it. I want to fade it a little bit more. Let's knock it down to 50% opacity. How does that work for us? I think it's working pretty good. All right, now I'm going to reduce contrast a little bit. I'm going to use a curves adjustment. Most of you might be familiar. Oh, I add contrast with a curves adjustment. Work that S curve into there. Add contrast. No, I don't want to do that. I want to flatten the line out, not make it steeper. So I'm going to drag the black point up. And I want to drag the black point up until the output is at about 30, 29. That's close enough. And I'm going to drag the white point down until the output is about 225 or there, roundabout there. And you can see it's just taking all the brightest parts of the photo and just kind of pushing them down, and all the very pitch black parts of the photo, just lifting them up a little bit. Again, this is another basis, a lot of cinematic imagery. You open up the shadows, you make sure you're not blowing out your highlights. When was the last time in a film you saw a sky that was solid white, like a cheap point and shoot camera would take, right? It's like the antithesis of cinematic is most of these, those old like point and shoot cameras that you pretty much got that with everything. All right, what kind of time do we have?
We've got 25 minutes until the challenge entries that we'll be reviewing, and then we'll have a short time, which is a good time to remind everybody that if you're working on your challenge right now, you got about 25 minutes left. If you don't know what I'm talking about, take a look to the right of the chat tab on Behance. We got a challenge going on to create an animated GIF image of some extreme sport related thing. Could be anything. We've got a few submissions already. Cool. We're going to be taking a look at those in 25 minutes. But yeah, let's.
I see a comment, David Samuel. Who else loves working with CMYK than RGB?
It's going to start to divide the audience.
I do so much for the web, and I begin designing in CMYK so much for it because I love working with CMYK, especially in Illustrator. Yeah. But RGB, if you want those really bright, crisp colors, you kind of got to roll with RGB, as long as you're not sending it off to be printed. All right, so here we go. Let's begin adding some text here. I'm going to grab my text tool, and I am going to type out in all capitals, in all caps, London. There we go. I'm going to go Window. I'm going to choose Character Panel to open up my Character Panel. And I've got League Spartan is the font I'm choosing to use here, and I'm going League Spartan Bold. And I'm going to change the size here. The size needs to be changed quite a bit. Let's just go for like 250 pixels, something like that should work for us. Now, I do just have to mention, if you're following along, or maybe not necessarily tightly following along, depending on the size of your image and even resolution, the size of these things might be a little bit different. And that also goes all the way back to when we apply that high pass filter. If you're working with a very tiny image, 3 pixels might be enough to give you that really solid mid-tone punch. Whereas with a larger image, it's just enough to really accentuate some of those edge details. All right, so I'm gonna go London. We could align this. I can go select and choose select all, and then I can say, look, align to the horizontal centers. Command or Control D is gonna deselect that for us. I wanna change the color of my type here, so I'm gonna select the color, my color picker. There we go. And the hex code I'm looking for is, I believe it's 2728 2B. So this is basically just a very pasty, dry, desaturated, like, what is that, like a almost magenta bluish color. Again, like I said, colors aren't my strong suit. I am self-diagnosed, partially colorblind. All right, so we've got that. I'm placing it near the top of my document here. What we're going to try to do is kind of intertwine it with what we've got going on up here and help make it feel a little bit more at home. But I want to do a couple other things too with it with this text as well. What I'm going to do is I am going to, let's try loading up the mask first that's on our firefighter layer. So I'm just going to Command or Control click on that. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And let's just say, hey, we're gonna mask our text to this. This is gonna not work the way we expect it to work, but I'm gonna show you what's going on. I'm gonna say, go ahead and add that mask, and of course it worked exactly how I wanted it to work.
You thought it was gonna knock everything
I thought
else
it was
out,
gonna.
yeah.
I thought it was gonna appear like this, but my mind isn't working right. This is exactly what we want. We want the splatter that we applied to the background to be applied to this. However, we would like the text to run all the way into his head and then disappear. So we do have to do a little customization here, and I'm gonna make this quick. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back and grab one of our splatter brushes, something like that. Maybe I'll make it a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to begin painting some of this away, paint it away. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough that we can't see the difference, right? As I said earlier, success is in the details. Now I'm showing you how to cut corners. All right, there we go. We're going to paint that away. I'm going to maybe paint this away in the front of this building. I don't want to get rid of that much of the letter D, so I'm gonna kind of break our everything's hiding behind everything rule. And, well, we never actually set the rule, did we? So I'm not breaking any rule. There we go. And now down here for the letter N, I want to just kind of join that to the head. So I'm going to hit the letter X. Now I'm painting with white, and we're going to just go in and just bring it closer to the head. It does not at all have to be perfect. It just, again, it just has to be good enough. There we go. Something like that. Ladies and gents, I think that's going to work just beautifully for us. All right. I'm going to back that out. And you can see, with relative ease, we just worked the text in there, and it looks way more complex than it does. Now, something else I might do with the splatter brush, I might add a little bit more texture to some of these areas that aren't yet affected, right? So something like that. Something like that. Maybe I'll go for a big spot of splatter here and there, something like that. There we go. I think that's good. I think that'll work for what we're doing here. One other thing you can do that maybe I'll try here. When you're working with something like this, you can double click on the layer to open up your layer styles, and you can use the blend if sliders down here. So I would like hold down Alt or Option and split the bottom slider, and then just begin dragging this back. And you can see, I mean, it's close enough to what we've got going on that I don't think the colors are close enough. Everything is close enough that there's not a whole lot we're going to do here. But a lot of times, again, the photos you're going to use your double or triple exposure are probably going to be different than this. And if the tonal range is there, and then if you go with maybe a lighter color text as opposed to a darker color text, it all changes what you can or can't do with it. So just know, go in there. Even if you don't understand how blend if works, mess around with the sliders. Fun stuff can happen. And fun stuff is, well, it's good when fun stuff's happening.
That's what we hope for.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the cool thing about this is a live text layer. So
Yes.
the mask is being applied.
Exactly.
If we
So
somehow
we could say,
determine that
NYC instead, and take it wherever we want to take
Yeah.
it. Or we could, I don't know if I can fit San Fran, but we very nearly fit San Fran. Oh no, here we go. Austin.
There you
Voila.
go. Represent.
So there we go. Michael's from Austin, by the way. I'm from Philly. I should have gone Philly. I should have been selfish and stuck with myself.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so now we want to apply a second layer mask to this text because we want to apply a text layer mask effect, which is a term that I came up with. But you can't apply more than one mask to a single layer. However, there's a little workaround so you can. Select a layer, hit Command or Control G. It throws that layer into a layer group. And you can now apply a new mask to this layer group. Oh, I need another layer mask. Well, Command or Control G to throw that group within another layer group.
Have you
and
pushed
you can
this to the limit?
I haven't. I would imagine some multiple of 8 or 16 eventually it gives out. Maybe 32 levels or something. I don't know what it is. But the point is, I've only ever needed, I think, 3 masks is my max I've ever needed in a project, and that was 1.
And if you need more, maybe you could question the technique. Maybe.
Exactly. Something's not going right. You need help. Adobe has a help hot. Well, no, I don't want to shout out Adobe's help. All right, so I'm gonna load up this text as a selection by Command or Control clicking on the T here, and I'm gonna make sure I have selected. See the little white tick marks around the text mask? That means I've got that mask selected. There we go. And what I want to do now is I want to first go select and choose Modify and contract my selection, and I'm gonna contract it by, for this size document, probably about 3 pixels. You can see we've got a little edge now on our text, right? It's looking okay. I think 3 pixels is what I'm gonna roll with here. And what I wanna do now is fill this layer mask with black. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit Option Delete and then hit Command or Control D. And you can see we now just have an outline of our text. Well, that's not at all what we want, is it? Of course not. We can select the layer mask. I'm going to Alt or Option click the layer mask to bring it up so we can view it in its alpha channel state, and just hit Command or Control I. That inverts everything. Alt or Option click our mask again, and you can see now we have our text. But what we've done, if I shift click the mask, you can see we've just trimmed the edge of our mask ever so slightly. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to apply a distressed edge effect to this text. Now this is something you can do in Illustrator, but as of right now, I know of no other way to do it in Photoshop but this. We're gonna go Filter, we're gonna go Distort, and I'm gonna choose Ripple. And I'm gonna move up here to my text, there it is. You can see we've got this distressed effect happening to our layer mask, so we still have our live text underneath. Technically though, you're gonna have to redo the mask for whatever word you're doing. And I kinda like where it is, just 100 amount at a size of medium, maybe push it up to large. Large looks a little bit too similar, and small also kinda looks a little too similar. Medium looks just random enough that I think it's gonna work for us. So I'm gonna hit OK for this. And then I'm also gonna try to apply, I'm gonna go Filter Gallery here. I'm still working on the mask. I'm not working on the text, I'm in the mask. Here under brush strokes, I'm gonna go with, let's see what I want, maybe accented edges, something like that. And if I make the edge width bigger, I don't really like that. Edge brightness, if I make that bigger or smaller, and then I can boost or reduce the smoothness. I might actually boost the smoothness a little bit, something like that, and hit OK. All right, now that I've done that, well, let's see what's going on here. Let's Alt or Option click, and I've definitely still got something going on. Oh, yes. Okay, so as we zoom in, you can see here that what was perfectly smooth text now has just a it's the subtlest of subtle effects. And by the way, if you want to make this effect stronger, when we did that initial contraction, instead of doing 3 pixels, do 15 pixels or something crazy, and you'll get a really crazy level of edge text distressment happening for you right there. Of course, you could add more distressing with your brushes, anything like that. That's all good. I think I'm going to throw in a little bit more text here. I'm going to go ahead and just add as a little homage to the great British group. I'm trying to focus on getting my layer out of my layer my layer group. The Great British Group, The Clash, London Calling. And I'm going to go ahead and resize this. Maybe knock it down to like 55, something like that. And use my move tool, my selection tool, and I'll move the word calling right up to here. It just kind of works, right? It's that perfect double entendre. British band, they've got the hit song London Calling. If you're in London and you've got a fire, who you calling? The fire department.
Ghostbusters.
It's kind of cheap. Well, yeah, maybe that too. Maybe that too, now that you point it out.
Different city.
I just locked into the one track. All right, let's go with some kind of red here. I'm going to go with maybe like an A1, so 2626. It's kind of like a flat fire engine red, right? I'm going to hit OK for that. And it didn't change the color of my text. Remember before, we changed the color of text by using the little thumbnail. But remember way back at the beginning of the tutorial, I told you if you select a shape layer or a fill layer and you just use the hotkey Option Delete, that'd be Alt Backspace on the PC, you can fill with your foreground color. Well, the same holds true for a text layer. Option Delete, Alt Backspace, boom, we change the color of the text. It's really that easy, folks. It's really, really that easy. There we go. I'm gonna, how do I want to do this? Maybe something like that. Very cool. And if you wanted to If you really wanted to, you could add a layer mask here on this layer, and we could just use our distressing brush and apply a little distressment to calling as well, just so it kind of fits in and matches and looks the way we want it to look. All right, we're coming down the home stretch here. Got a couple more adjustments to add, and then we'll go over some questions and challenges and all the fun stuff that we're doing here. I'm gonna add another color lookup table. Too many color lookup tables, you say? I don't care. We're gonna go with the edgy amber LUT, and you can see this is quite a drastic change here. By the way, there's some unsung heroes. You want to take a photo and make it look kind of like movie-esque quickly, reduce the contrast and add the teal orange plus contrast. Look, it's just such a cool LUT to add. It looks bad on this image, but on a lot of other images, it looks really cool. You have a great urban photo. You just came back from downtown Manhattan and you got a photo that you want it to look epic. Come in here and add the drop blues LUT. Again, to this image, it does virtually nothing, but to a particularly city urban portrait stuff, not even portraits of people, like portraits of the city, the drop blues LUT it's just awesome. All right, so I'm gonna go with edgy amber, and the effect's a little bit too strong. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set it to the blend mode of color. You can see what that's doing. It's still kind of bad. So let's reduce the opacity, maybe bring it to about, I don't know, I'm gonna keep it kind of low because I'm not as much a fan of what I'm getting as I thought I would be. I just want to introduce some orange and beiginess because of what we're about to do here. Next, what we're gonna do, speaking of what we're gonna do next, we're gonna add some texture, and this is where we enter the realm of Adobe stock. I'm gonna open up libraries here, and I have here this white sheet of paper folded. It doesn't have the blue check next to it, and that cues me in that, hey, you haven't bought this one yet. So what I can do is right-click on any image I bring in here. By the way, you can buy Adobe Stock on the Adobe Stock website, right, Michael, as you know so well. And you can just have it automatically download to your Creative Cloud library. I tend to like to download previews to my Creative Cloud library. Make sure the image is gonna work with what I'm working on. You still have a big watermark and numbers plastered all over it. But once you have that photo, you know what? Check this out. Before we even license the image, I want to show you something as Photoshop becomes unresponsive. There we go. As I double-clicked. Let's drag this image in. It's an unlicensed image. Well, I just canceled it. Guys, I am a professional, let me tell you. I'm gonna drag this image in. It's unlicensed. It's got watermarks all over it. It's got the stuff that makes my skin crawl. And I'm going to go ahead and center this thing up as everybody waits with bated breath to see what I do with watermarks. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna free transform this, Command or Control T. I'm gonna size it up, right? Remember, we're still working with a preview. We wanna make sure the image works with our comp before we license it. This, by the way, this is the advantage of Adobe Stock in my mind, besides having a lot of good images, over any other stock agency you can work with on the market. Check this out. We get this thing in place. I am gonna go ahead and I'm gonna set this to the blend mode of multiply. You can see that that's just added this very cool papery texture to this. And I'm like, I got it. This is the one I want. But maybe not yet. Maybe I want to add a levels adjustment because the blacks are a little too strong. So I want to boost that black point. I want to click my levels adjustment just to my brown paper, right? Command Option G, Control Alt G. We're just affecting the paper. We're just lifting some of those shadows. It's going to just make that text effect a little bit more subtle. Oh, what'd you say? I can just reduce the opacity. That's right. Let's reduce opacity a little bit too, just to show you that we can do this a variety of ways. The real reason I'm showing you this here is because we've adjusted opacity, we've applied a blend mode to this, and we've clipped an adjustment layer to an unlicensed image from Adobe Stock, and I look at it and I say, beautiful. I want to get this. Right-click the image, choose License Image. It's going to say, hey, look, you're going to use one of your remaining 20-something licenses, one of your 20 licenses. I'm going to say, go for it. Hit OK, and check this out. Watch carefully. We're gonna give this a second here. The Adobe logo's there, the Adobe logo, well, the K is back there. Oh, it's gone. It's all gone, just like that. Not only is all that gone, but you get the high resolution version of the image. And just like that, in your Creative Cloud library, it's now got the check. You can use it on whatever projects you want, and it's there, and everything is right with the world. We got one last step.
Seamless.
We got one last step.
All right.
And this is in the retouching world, this is our retouching layer. This is our grain layer. Grain is important. It's not just some kind of trendy Instagram filter effect that we add because, hey, it's the cool thing to do. It's very useful. It helps you blend color and tone. Have you ever applied a gradient across an image and had that just horrible banding of color? Add some grain on top of it and all that banding goes away. It's like magic. We're gonna add a new layer here. I'm gonna name this grain. We're actually gonna add 2 layers of grain, but we're gonna do one at a time. I'm gonna go edit, I'm going to choose fill. For my contents, I'm gonna choose the 50% gray, and I'm gonna hit OK. And then I'm gonna use what I think is the best grain generator in Photoshop, and that is Camera Raw. Oh, I should have shown you how I got into Camera Raw. The hotkey is Command Shift or Control Shift A, but that's a little bit of a mouthful. You can just go filter and choose Camera Raw Filter. Here in Camera Raw Filter, I'm gonna zoom into 100%. See, I got my little percentage marker down there. And I'm gonna come over here to the FX tab, and I'm gonna give it a bunch of grain. Now, I'm not gonna change much in terms of size or roughness. Our second layer of grain will be the more, give me grain that looks like it was on TV in the 60s, or whatever we wanna do. This is the base grain. This is the working grain. This is the foundation. We're gonna go ahead and hit OK. I am now gonna set this to the blend mode of soft light. And again, I'm gonna zoom into 100%. I just hit Command 1, that'd be Control 1 on the PC. I might actually zoom in further. And we can see here, it really doesn't look like, I mean, does it look like much has changed? Not really. However, if I shut off the grain, we now have 2 objects that look like they come from distinctly different images.
2 places, yeah.
Whereas when we apply the grain, it is like a joining force. It's the peace and love within Photoshop that gives us that perfect relationship between a myriad of images that we would drag together and place together in Photoshop. So we did it with 1 layer. We're gonna just duplicate that grain layer, Command or Control J, and we're gonna jump back. Now, by the way, now we've got too much grain, right? Now that's looking bad. I'm gonna hit Command Shift or Control Shift A to jump back into Camera Raw, go back to the FX tab. I'm gonna add more grain. I broke my rule. I gotta zoom to 100%. I wanna see what's going on here. Now this one, I'm gonna bump the size way up and the roughness. Now you can see how this kind of looks like that television static, right? It's much less crunchy. It's got less artificial feel to it. I'm gonna hit OK. And now you can see it immediately kind of smooths things out. We still have too much grain. So I'm gonna select the bottom grain layer. I'm gonna reduce the opacity to maybe 50%. I'm gonna select the top layer and reduce that. Maybe maybe more than that, maybe 60 to 70%. I'm gonna push a little bit more grain in there on the bottom level. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Beautiful.
There we go. We've completed our poster.
Nice.
With everything.
Yeah.
From the adjustment layers and color effects to the final finished grain. We threw a text effect in there just for good measure. He's got London on his back. He's one of London's finest.
You're selling the whole movie.
I went, yeah, right.
It's gorgeous, and I think one of the most amazing things, you know, watching, and something that's really interesting to share, is a lot of these things you throw it on and it's heavy and you dial it back, and
Absolutely.
it's about subtlety. It's about building
Right.
up slowly.
I intentionally will bring an effect too high and then dial it back.
Yep.
Bring it too high and dial it back. And with opacity, with Smart Object, there's virtually nothing in Photoshop these days. You can do that with filters. You can do it with blurs. You can do it with virtually everything you touch in Photoshop. You can take it beyond, and you can just bring it right back to its sweet spot. Opacity. Opacity sliders all over the place on basically every tool, every
Right,
filter,
exactly, yeah.
every function, every layer, everywhere. So what do we have? What kind of questions are we looking at here?
Yeah, let's see some questions. I know I saw a couple people saying that we might save it.
Adobe stocks, looking good to me
Yeah,
now.
looking good.
That's right.
Damn.
Lucius, did I pronounce your name correctly? Wait, what did you
so.
say? We're gonna save it.
Save it.
Oh yeah, right. Of course. Thanks for the Thanks for the reminder, everybody.
People are saying.
Let's name it Adobe Live Day 1, because I'm coming back tomorrow and the day after, and tomorrow and the day after's composite work. Even this is gonna look amateur compared to what we're doing tomorrow and the day after. Wait till you guys see that.
Yeah. So let's see. Favorite program ever.
Like Adobe
Digital
app?
application. Yeah, I don't
My
know.
favorite,
Liam Barr asked
my
this.
favorite Adobe app is Illustrator. It's such a deep application, and I'm very quickly falling deeply in love with After Effects. Again, for much of the same reason. It's so deep. There's so much there to learn that it's great. I work with Photoshop every single day. Every day that I'm in front of my computer, I open Photoshop. There's not a day that goes. The day I got married, my wedding day, I was working in Photoshop that morning. And if I'm working in Photoshop that morning, I'm working in Photoshop.
Yeah,
every
editing
day.
your wedding
Yeah,
photos.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen a ton of people saying that they're subscribing to your channel on YouTube as we speak. If you
Can you say "get it, got it, good"?
Get it.
That's the thing I say it at the end of all my videos.
Oh yeah, so you gotta say it.
That's it for this. How do I usually roll into it? Well, I usually run down a very quick feed. All right, here's how I do it. Ladies and gentlemen, well, all right, whatever. Don't overthink it, Nathaniel. Ladies and gentlemen, for learning how to composite images in Photoshop using adjustment layers, grain, sharpening, and about 50 other things that we did today in Photoshop, that's it. Get it, got it, good.
All right.
Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one.
That's amazing. So we get the official sign off on
There
the
you
Adobe
go.
live
Exactly.
stream. I'm curious to hear from the audience what new or interesting, maybe surprising technique you learned from this stream today. I know I learned a ton of stuff. The high pass filter, the
Yeah.
high pass to give that punch.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a
Never seen that
lifesaver.
before. Yeah. Yeah, you're getting lots
Jeffrey
of love here.
McPherson.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it, man. Got somebody checking in from Nairobi. I've heard the beaches in Nairobi are nice.
Can we confirm?
Yeah, can we confirm? Are the beaches in Nairobi nice? It seems to be one of those countries you can go literally from desert to beach. I mean, I guess you can. There are parts of California you can do that too, right?
Yeah, that's what it feels like sometimes.
Can you remake the vibrant color ring? That was my first tutorial in Photoshop. I should. That's what he's talking about. I have an old Photoshop tutorial. It's pretty popular, and it's a really cool finished effect. And I'll have to do that, Liam. I'll have to do that. It's cool. I wish I had an example here so I could show those of you that don't know.
Yeah,
but I don't want to go digging
Yeah.
through my YouTube right now.
So soft light selection
soft light
cleanup,
selection
that was
cleanup.
amazing. That was a new
that
one.
that was personally that was a huge game changer for me. And especially, I mean, put yourself in the position where you photograph a model in studio and she's got long hair, or a guy with like a huge afro, right? And you got all those little ends of even your hair, right? You've got everything kind of pushed up, and you have hair that's going all over the place. Well, not
Yeah.
yours isn't going all over the place, but it's like sticking out.
Yeah, yeah.
You can do so much with select and mask, but only so much.
Right.
And you get to the point where it's still a little fringing. That soft light brush, it's great.
Again, it's letting the app do the work for you, letting that logic and that code
Well,
base.
you're a YouTuber. Do you play Fortnite? Because you can't be a good YouTuber unless you play Fortnite.
Oh, funny you should ask.
I've only played a couple of games of Fortnite, and it's been with my my 2-year-old daughter. So I mean, I can't really say that I play Fortnite. I'm good cannon fodder for other people. Adobe Live. Can you post that so it's clickable?
The vibrant ring. Yeah.
I would have to find it, Liam. I would have to find it. Do you want to go to my YouTube channel and see if you can find it?
Let's see. Do we think?
If
this
you
is
go
it?
youtube.com. Oh, did he post it? Oh, he's asking if he. Oh, one of the mods got it.
Oh, nice.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Thank
mods,
you, Adobe
mods
Live
that are
mod.
on. Yes. There you go. Look at that. The old intro and everything.
All right. There's some hair.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So that's the effect.
Yeah. So let's
That's the
switch.
effect.
Can we
So you can-
switch to this screen here? You want to describe what
Yeah,
this
so
tutorial's all
really
about?
the key for this effect is know how to work with vector paths in Photoshop, right? There's a lot of very precise vector paths creating sort of the teeth of this spiraling effect. And then it's just a simple like stroke applied to the edges of each of them. And the key to get the color, I'll give you the key to get the color. Number one, a gradient, a very colorful gradient, but it's not. I'm showing a website that I was working in cooperation with at the time, the key to getting that color is it's just a circle that I've punched a hole in the middle of, but it is it's the radiant. No, it's the angle gradient. I'm sorry. So it's the gradient that begins like just covering the radius of the circle and swoops around. So it that gradient probably began and ended with that pink color in the top center, and then just continued all the way around. So if you straighten that circle out and laid it on the floor like a colorful caterpillar or something, it would be pink on both ends, and it'd go pink, blue, teal, green, yellow, orange, red, back to the pink, magenta.
Fold it in
and then
itself.
Exactly. But it's a live effect with layer styles. So it's not something where I had to transform it and warp and twist, because how to get the beautiful perfect circle.
Oh, it's gorgeous
So-
in this version of Photoshop.
Yeah.
We're in the we're way back. So
Yeah.
Liam says this tutorial got him stuck in the Adobe cycle and he never left. So thank you, and we thank you,
There you
and
go.
we thank you.
There you go. The graphic blocking the text is a little just the graphic block. Maybe.
They're talking about
yeah. I think that's what
Lennon
he's talking
calling
about.
here.
Yeah, and honestly, it's the kind of thing where if the graphic is too much, get rid of the city of London on his back, right? And you still have a great double exposure. So because it's all non-destructive, you go in, it would take 2 minutes. You go in, you'd wipe out the city of London, clean up kind of the backside of his head and the back of his shoulders, and boom, you have a totally different looking graphic.
Well, and we saw even at the beginning, we were maybe 4 or 5 steps in and just setting the initial blend mode. It was something, the actual image was supposed to be in the background originally, and it kind of clipped to those blacks, and
Yeah.
it looked gorgeous anyway. So you can,
Exactly. Yeah, that's perfect.
We've got a half a minute.
Until
we'll
the
say a minute
challenge
until the
submission?
challenge submission deadline.
That's for the deadline.
Yeah, who's
Do we need,
here
do we
like
need to come up with more stuff to
feverishly-
show
We
in
will.
the interim?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can.
Yeah. While I get these cycled up, maybe you can.
Yeah, let me bring up, I want to find some stock photos on Adobe.
So if you're still working right now on the challenge submission, if you're feverishly exporting, your GIF image and getting it uploaded right now, we'll go ahead and give you a few more seconds to do that. We're gonna take a look at them,
Okay.
see all the awesome work. I know creating a GIF, an animated GIF, it might be looping. It can be kind of a challenging thing. So I'm really interested in seeing what submissions we have to take a look at.
Exactly. So I want to show you guys kind of a cool effect. KFC just came out with, and this is totally off the cuff here. We're just gonna, you take a walk with me on the wild side, so to speak. KFC just came out with that ad campaign. I don't know if it was official KFC. I heard that it was. But they took pieces of chicken and they turned them into like the explosion coming out of the back of a dragster or underneath the space shuttle, stuff like that. But it's using a piece of chicken instead of a flame. And I guess the idea is it's so crispy and crunchy and all that. So I want to show you how to take a piece of fried chicken and turn it into what looks like something that could be used underneath the space shuttle as an explosion. I think, if it works out in my head the way that I'm thinking of it, it's going to be pretty easy, but I think a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and just find some fried chicken here on Adobe Stock. And what I'm looking for, I see like this isolated over white, that's nice. That's gonna be useful for us. But what I'm really looking for is like a nice drumstick that could be like a little bit of explosion here, but the main heat from like underneath the rocket is over here, right? And maybe we'll maybe try to do something with the space shuttle.
I love that we're jumping in and out of language of fried chicken and heat explosions from rockets. If you're just joining us, just follow along. Just
right.
take,
NASA
take
has
a leap
never
with
been
us.
such a fan. NASA, SpaceX, never been a greater fan of fried chicken than they are today. See, this stock photo, this is great because this gives us options, right? So this, I kind of like this. But I'm looking for chicken too. Like, there's maybe not enough contrast. I want the crevices on the crunch to go deep. I want them to be very dark. So I like that. I don't love it. If I have to use it, I'll use it. But let's keep looking here. Let's keep looking. This is interesting, and we get a side of fries
Combo
with
meal,
it.
yeah.
Exactly. You guys, you're gonna love this. All right, let's go ahead. I'm gonna license this. You can see it's gonna say buy the license.
We
hold
gotta
on.
sign in.
No, it's not signed in.
Oh.
Disclaimer: I'm using incognito mode because you just never know where someone's browser is going to go. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to, I think I can take the number, right, and then go into Photoshop. I think I can do that. Hold on. Let me go back to Photoshop. This is, we're going to learn here on the fly. I'm pretty sure. Search images in here. I thought there was a way that you could search for Adobe Stock right from Photoshop.
There is a search bar.
I could have. I'm gonna go view on website, and we'll just add. So, all right, you know what, guys?
We can take a look at some submissions.
Forget incognito mode.
You get that?
Okay, that's perfect. All right, I'm gonna find the chicken again, and we're gonna get this thing into Photoshop.
All right, so let's take a look at some submissions on my screen right now. If you got in a submission this time, that's awesome. We're about to take a look at these. I'll just refresh to make sure I get the latest list. It looks like we got a good number of submissions. We're starting just above this quick animation. So if you're not aware, this challenge was to create an animated GIF in Photoshop using the timeline panel. The theme was extreme sports, so we'll kind of see how creative you got there. If you didn't get a chance to submit it in this segment, just go ahead and work on it. You could clean it up if you're ready to submit it during the next segment. We'll be reviewing these all day, so it's gonna be pretty cool. So let's see if we open these up, I believe, in a new tab. Oh yeah, much smoother. Okay.
Extreme sports.
Extreme sports.
So is it the animation, did you animate along a path, or is it hand keyframed in? I would go with a more extreme sporty font too. That's more like wedding invitation, which is great if it's on a ski slope. Right. But it's maybe a little bit, you want to go for something big, bold. There's a free font out there called Axis, which is pretty cool. If you have signed up for Adobe CC, you've got access to Typekit. There's all kinds of really great, bulky, chunky sans serif fonts. I feel like something like this calls for a sans serif font. Fat, thick, maybe not fat so much as just like thick and strong and bold.
What I do
Yeah.
like is that we got the light is kind of
And we got
coming
an animation.
from both.
Yeah, it's the same direction,
It's
yeah, on the mountain and on the
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
good catch.
So
by
the
you.
highlights there.
Yeah.
Great submission. Thank you.
That's the kind of thing you
Richard.
don't notice unless it's not done correctly.
Right,
And you're like,
right, right.
It looks so like.
All right, fine. All right. I like the little. We're jump back into the original meme,
And
the,
the little-
banana and the final dash fnl.psd.
That's a submission that tells us you've been here all day.
Yeah, and we did see this before, so thank you for adding. Just keep adding finals to that PSD name.
You
Keep
could, if you
submitting.
submit this for everybody coming up, because there's 2 more people, right? 2 more people after me today. If you do continue building this out for each of those.
We're gonna be very
You could have-
impressed.
you could have a-
That was Liam. Thank you. He's been participating all day. Amazing. Oh, here we go. Cool.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
It's like very. Is it cinegraph? Cinematograph? I believe they're
Cinematograph.
called?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of
very
these.
cool.
All
Love the
around.
movement of the clouds too. There's that trick when you want to create seamless video out of something like clouds. You split it and flip it. And then you apply a large crossfade to that middle split. That way, the very beginning of your timeline and the very end of your timeline are the same frames matching up against. You'll always have a perfect loop, and the controllable part where you want the fade is in the middle, where you can apply a fade.
Amazing.
Just a little shout out there for the video editors.
That's
in the
amazing.
house.
We're learning everything. All right. What do we got here?
Oh, very cool.
So this is extreme sports and maybe a different. This is like.
Well, it's not
the
extreme
the
sports because
effect.
he hasn't broken his hand
Oh,
yet.
that's true. Unless, yeah. So
That's cool,
somebody
though.
must have had a little.
That's nice.
A run in.
And animating the mask in Photoshop, that's not a beginner level thing. You
Oh,
got to
no.
know how to animate
Yeah,
the
yeah.
mask. That's
Yeah.
very, very nice.
All right, thank you, team. Let's see. Here we go. Oh. Okay, so this
Reminds
is extreme sport gone wrong.
Have you seen that prank video where they have the guy bungee jump off the bridge and his buddy like throws a rope down after him? He's like, no!
Oh my gosh, as he's like watching
exactly.
it trail from him.
So cruel.
Oh, that
so
is
mean.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Here we got 3 more. Let's take a look at them.
Rolling party of the century, not drifting.
Rolling, not
I like the vibe of the text. It needs a fatter font. When you go, I'm sorry, not a font, a stroke. When you go with a stroke that's that thin, depending on how, a lot of things can change. It might look perfect in Photoshop, but when you end up exporting it as something like a JPEG or somewhere, maybe you're downsizing the size of the document. A lot of times a 1 or 2 pixel stroke will start to look a little spotty or crunchy. So that's kind of what that crunchy edge is. It would look a lot smoother even if you bumped it up to like, I don't know, however big the image is. Like if that's a 1 pixel stroke, if you bump it up to like 3 pixels. Like almost the size that it is on the skater as they come closer, right? It'll be perfect.
We got a transparent GIF though. That's
Oh, nice, okay.
cool. So you can overlay it on.
Well,
anything,
and
maybe
so
like
part
a
of it too,
tie-dye
maybe part of the
funky-
transparency.
Yeah.
Transparent GIFs they're interesting.
Yeah, kind of tricky.
Yeah.
All right, Colleen submits this.
Skydiving. See,
Yeah.
what I love about this is just the beauty and the simplicity,
Yep.
and like you know what you're thinking when it comes to like the seamlessness of it. As I say that, I can see the hitch where it restarts. But you have right there a clean, perfect palette for creating a perfectly seamless.
Yeah.
A perfectly seamless little bit of animation there.
Yeah, it's kind of inventive too. We're seeing falling, and really the only thing animated in this illustration are the clouds, right? We're
Yeah.
thinking kind of
Yeah, that's
differently.
true.
Gorgeous palette, nice
Exactly.
warm tones. So thank you for submitting this. And let's take a look at the final one that we got in before the deadline.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
I love the colors.
yeah.
You see that radial gradient in the background, how it's got some striping and banding? That's where if you added that grain that we did right at the end, that would go away, and it would just be a nice smooth gradient.
Yeah. Cool. So, do we want to pick a favorite? We're working with, you kind of remember these from their
Ooh,
thumbnails,
I mean, in
right?
terms
you
of
know
like,
what? We skipped 2. We skipped a few. That's my bad, everybody.
is that one of those? I forget what those little little creature.
Yeah, they have names.
Yeah. Very. I mean, yeah. That's bouncing on his front wheel. It's
All
more
right.
than I could do.
Yeah.
I think it would be better without the text effect at the end, or is at the beginning. Just if you keep it simple with the clean animation, and it'll be nice. And I can't tell, is the graphic on his helmet something to do with No, I think it's just part of the. I think it's part of the artwork. That's cool though.
Yeah. All right, let's check out surf.
Oh, nice. It's got the like that threshold type effect.
Yeah, cool.
That's very cool, and it's just seamless. Look at that. Great job. And also, I like how the surfer enters above the word surf. That's super duper cool. Mm-hmm. That's really nice. And what do we have? A parachutist? Paraglider?
All right. Again, maybe it looks like something's going wrong.
I was going to say another example of extreme sports gone terribly wrong.
Okay, and this appears to be the final one that we maybe had missed.
Okay.
Minimal.
Yeah. See, I mean, but it's just like, it's solid. You know, it's better to have a nice, solid, simple animation where you're just, what you make is good, right? I'd rather have a piece of chocolate than a truck full of cow manure. So give me the little good, the good little taste instead of something that's a big mess. And that's exactly what this tells.
Yeah.
To be clean artwork. Simple, obviously a very simple little document that you're moving across, and then would come the process of you start to add other elements as you build them out.
Right.
Keeping up a nice level of cleanness and quality, precision, and excellence across the board.
All things that we strive for. Okay, so that was the full.
Oh man, I
set
gotta
of
pick.
submissions.
A favorite.
So here we got 12 here.
Because there's three that I really really like, and I got to go with the surf.
The surf?
Threshold surf. Honestly, what I like most about it is, number one, it's a very nice, seamless transition, and also the added detail of the surfer moving in front of the text. I think it's thoughtful.
Do you think we had a little bit of inspiration from the splatter brushes?
Hey, I mean, yeah,
some
there you
textured
go.
edges
I didn't even think about that.
From today's lesson.
Exactly, and it does have those same textured edges.
All right, so let's see. Juan Camilo Ramirez. This is your submission. You're going to get a 1-year subscription to Creative Cloud.
You're the man. You're the man, Juan.
And thank you to everybody for submitting their gifts. I know personally this is not a simple challenge. I mean, using the timeline panel, if you're just getting familiar with frame-based animation or some tweening or things like that, it can be a task to get something out, and especially in an hour and a half. So thank you to everybody.
You had to come up with concept through to creation.
Yeah, exactly.
In an hour and a half.
And maybe try and learn.
Well, and obviously, Juan, you still were able to keep an eye on what was going on in terms of the tutorial. All right, are we back to checking out?
Yeah,
Explosive Chicken?
I hope everybody remembers where we left off before the submissions.
Yeah, we're looking at doing a little sort of mock-up. Well, earlier we did our poster. Now we're doing a little mock-up, much in the way that KFC did their explosive chicken mock-up, where it was like the chicken was the explosion underneath the space shuttle taking off, or this dragster. They had a bunch of different kind of cool usages of this. And I think they just use photos of their chicken, but there's a way you can take a photo of pretty much any fried chicken and do something similar, at least in my head. I'm thinking about it. This is the unscripted portion of today's broadcast. 12
minutes unscripted, free range.
That's perfect. Free range chicken. Oh, free range compositing. I'm sorry. All right, so here we are on Adobe Stock. Here's how we would license and save to our library from Adobe Stock. So you go, first of all, you could just save a preview. We know this is going to work probably for us. So I'm going to hit the word downloads. It's going to drop down a little menu. And I could just download and save to my image. I could open directly in Photoshop or any of these other apps. But I want to save it to my library for easy usage later on down the road. And I have a folder here called Images. These are my Creative Cloud folders that are showing up. If you have folders on your Creative Cloud, you're going to have a different set of folders that are showing up. And by the way, you can create a new library as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it to my images. And it's going to say, look, we're going to buy this image for you. Boom, there you go. License. Look at that. It's a beautiful site, is it not? I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. But where is it? It's not in Photoshop. Well, check this out. See this little rotating arrow? Well, once we see the Creative Cloud logo, usually that means the syncing process has completed. And sure enough, we have our fried chicken in here. Before we do anything else, let's go. Oh, I closed Google Chrome. No, I didn't. Let's find a rocket. And I have a feeling I knew there was going to be a lot of artwork for the rocket. Ooh, this is kind of a cool looking rocket. Maybe we could just go with this. We can keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. So I'm going to go with this rocket, and I'm going to license and save this image to the images folder here as well. And minimize again. Give Photoshop. Sometimes you can hit you can click on that little logo, and I don't know if it makes it faster, but I feel like it makes it faster. So sometimes I just click it a couple times, and it tends to do good things. So here's the rocket, here's the chicken. Let's just go ahead and see if we can make this explosion happen with chicken. So I'm going to double click this chicken. It's going to open this up, and let's ISO one of these pieces onto a white background. So let's begin here. Let's create a new document. And I'm going to stick with my 2560 by 1440, but I want it to go the other direction because it's a rocket. So I'm going to choose the portrait orientation, and I'm going to hit OK. And over here with the chicken, I'm just going to grab this guy here first. Just using the lasso tool, we're going with a very rough selection. Command or Control J, it's going to pop him up on his own layer. And one of the newer features actually in Photoshop is the ability now to copy and paste layers. So I can go Command or Control C, and then Command or Control V, and boom, there we go. Chicken in the new document.
It's beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's such a great thing. And now I'm going to hit Command or Control T. I'm going to rotate this up. I don't know, kind of like that, kind of like it's our explosion. I don't know, we'll see. I have no idea what this is gonna look like, but we're doing it. We're doing it. I'm gonna select my background real quick, and I'm just gonna throw an adjustment layer over it, maybe curves, and I'm gonna grab the white point and just darken it, just because I wanna isolate the chicken a little bit more. I'm gonna select the chicken layer here, and this is a prime opportunity to play around with, again, the new select subject, the artificial intelligence infused new function in Photoshop. So I'm gonna go select object, and I would imagine with an image like this, it's gonna do a pretty bang up job. And sure enough, there we go. That's really, really good.
Nice.
I think that's kind of perfect. It was close enough for me. What I might do is just go, like, this is just a quick and dirty way to clean up a selection. Modify, contract it maybe like 1 pixel, and then select, modify, and feather, again, maybe like 1 pixel. And then I don't even want to mask this. I just want to get rid of the white altogether. So I'm going to go select, inverse. That's going to invert my selection. We now have selected everything on the chicken layer other than the chicken, and I can just hit the
Throw it
delete
out.
key and then Command or Control D. And we've got some chicken, ladies and gentlemen. We've got some chicken. I am now going to convert this to a smart object because here's where the process of trial and error begins. Like I said, in my head, I see what I'm doing, but there's a difference between that and doing what I also sometimes see myself dunking, but it's never quite worked out on the court. So I'm gonna right click on this and convert it to a smart object. I'm gonna name this Expo Chicken because it's chicken now, but it's about to be exploded. And I'm going to go Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to choose Invert. Now, one of the cool things about your image adjustments here, even the standard destructive image adjustments, is they are applied as smart adjustments to your smart object, as you can see. So I could go in and say, you know what? I actually don't want the inversion, but I do want the inversion. One of the other things I'm going to do, now that I can see kind of what this is looking like, a rather underwatery looking coral of some type, I'm going to go Adjustments. I think I'm going to go Levels. And you can see here, Levels has been added to the stack. We were using adjustment layers before. Now we're going about this a different way because Photoshop, it gives us options. I'm going to boost the blacks. I don't know that I'm really going to boost the whites too much. Maybe a little bit. And then I'm going to move all of the midpoint. I'm going to kind of open up the blacks to make this overall a little blacker. I'm going to hit OK. And now, I think we're at a point where I can use one of my favorite adjustment layers. And I think this is actually going to work out, boys and girls. I'm going to open up the Adjustments panel here, and I'm going to add a gradient map. And I'm going to clip it, Command-Option-G, to the chicken / explosion. And I think it's time to add, we're getting close. What am I looking? Well, not that. That's not good at all. I kind of like this. There's too much red in the shadows. I need to open that up. Maybe back this off a little. Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting somewhere here, folks. Look at that. Look at that.
That's some hot and spicy chicken.
That is some of all the chickens.
This is the hottest.
This is the hottest. I'm gonna make that red, I think, a little darker, something like that. Ooh, I think, yeah. I'm semi-genuinely shocked that worked out.
Things are
the way
going
that it
well.
did. Okay, cool. What I can do as well, I want to make this explosion more. What are we looking at time-wise? Are we still looking good?
We've got 7 minutes.
Okay.
Probably.
I'm gonna I think I have another chickeny shot in here. I think. 68 remaining. Hang with me here, folks. There we go. I'm looking for. I knew like 2 years ago or something. I licensed
Every Creative Cloud library tells a story, folks.
What's all this chicken for? All right, I'm gonna paste. Nope, got the wrong layer. When you're copying and pasting a layer, I found that it's helpful to unlock the layer. And there we go. Also here, I am going to convert this to a smart object. And I'm doing that because I don't yet know how big or small I want this to be. But I'm thinking something right around there is probably good for us. And it's a smart object. Okay, so let me undo that. What I just did, I'm not gonna lie, I partially did that because I wasn't 100% certain it was gonna work because this is not the way I normally work. You hold down the Alt or Option key and you can click and drag the little double circle and drop it on another smart object and you'll apply all of those filters. So you can see, there we go. And at this point, all we would do is just duplicate our gradient map up and then clip it to that layer as well. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build out this explosion a little bit, right? So we not only just have our little chicken leg up here, and I need to make sure I keep it with the, here's a little tip for you. We can select both layers, we can right click, and we can just link these layers together. So next time I drag this layer, well, it still didn't work. All right, scratch that. Normally it keeps the layers together, but maybe with a clipped adjustment layer, it doesn't work that way. All right, so the whole point is I want to create an explosion from which our space shuttle or our rocket ship will come. So there we go, something like that. I'm gonna shut off the top chicken, and with the bottom chicken, I'm gonna paint a little layer mask into here. Let's just try to clean up. There shouldn't be macaroni and cheese on the launch pad. So we're gonna clean that up a little bit.
Normally.
Yeah, typically. There is one engineer who is notorious for bringing that stuff around. All right, so what I'll do here is I'm just gonna paint away some of this, and this is just gonna be a very rough little mask that we've got going on here. Oof, it's almost making me cringe to look at it. Will it look better
I was
if
thinking
I just
it
fade it?
making me hungry, but it is lunchtime here.
See, I'm still living on East Coast time here, folks.
Yeah.
It's 3:51 for me.
Ready for happy hour.
All right, I'm gonna turn this on. And what we would do to mesh this all together, we would select this top chicken layer, add a mask to that, and just paint it in. Fire doesn't have edges, does it? At least none that I've ever seen. There we go. All right, now that we've done that, I should probably grab my crop tool again because the rocket ship needs room to grow. There we go. With our background layer, we're just gonna fill that with white. I'm gonna get rid of that curves adjustment layer that was making it gray, right? Something like that's probably good. Maybe actually, I'm gonna hit Command or Control U. I'm gonna tick on colorize, boost saturation, drop the lightness a little bit, and maybe give this more of that kind of, I don't know, tanny background, something like that. Oof, that blurred edge bugs me. All right, I'm gonna ignore it. All right, let's grab the rocket. Let's bring it in here. I'm gonna get rid of this fried chicken. Isn't that crazy? We went 2 different pieces of fried chicken, folks, and got actually maybe better results out of the second. It looks like magma, the second result. But I feel like a space shuttle would kind of leave at least some magma type substance on the ground behind it, right?
I imagine so.
I don't know. I've never driven a space shuttle before. All right, let's, how are we gonna do this? Let's see if I can just do this a fast way here.
We're gonna do it in 2.5 minutes.
All right, yes, we are. We're gonna
moving
go select,
fast.
I'm gonna go select subject. And I don't think this is gonna work well for this image, but prove me wrong, Photoshop. Prove me wrong. It proved me wrong. All right, I'm gonna hit Command or Control J. We've got the rocket up on its own layer now. And I'm just gonna drag this over to the document like this. I'm gonna hit Command or Control T. Gonna zoom back. I'm going to, let's go something like that. Make my rocket a bit smaller, right? The plume of smoke being emitted from a rocket is always a bit smaller than or a bit larger than the rocket itself, right? At least from stuff that I've seen. And now this is going to be pretty easy to mask the space shuttle the rocket where we want it to be masked. Just Command or Control click that smart object, right? And then we've already applied our mask to the rocket, but make sure you've selected the mask. We're going to zoom in. We don't want to get rid of the flames and the wing on the front, but we do want to get rid of the stuff there on the back. And you're going to be shocked. When you do this kind of layering stuff, it totally changes how an image looks and interacts with a particular something. And in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unlock the layer to layer mask movement here. I'm gonna select the rocket. I'm just gonna nudge it upward a little bit. I feel like the rocket should be more like that. And I'm just gonna quick touch this up, just like that. Make sure I'm working on the mask. I'm gonna paint with black. I'm gonna paint with white and just touch up these edges just a little bit. I'll go around these edges as well. There we go. And last but not least, I'll just fade away the flame here, because it really shouldn't be a crispy, crunchy edge of the flame. And there probably should be some flame in front of it too. But hey, what do you want? It's a little. We threw this thing together last minute. The last thing, how much time do we have? Like 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
All right. So we reduce contrast and we add a color lookup table. Maybe I'll go with the film stock 50 and see what that gives me. And there we have it. A nice fried chicken explosion. I never thought I'd be doing this today.
No, no one did.
The fried chicken explosion. Yes, I thought at first he was winging it, but now we're getting to the meat of the matter.
We've inspired some puns.
We had a lot of chicken buns. That's very nice.
All right. Yeah, well, that was
perfect.
amazing. So for everybody, please tune in tomorrow at the same time and the following day. Nathaniel's going to be back. We're going to be taking on a different composite, learning all new techniques. I've seen it. It looks really good. You should be excited. I'm excited.
Oh, you're not on my screen. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we did a cool composite today. We're doing an even cooler composite tomorrow. And I think arguably the coolest composite, I don't know, it's a toss-up between tomorrow's composite and Thursday's composite. But when you got two cool things, what's better than a good thing? Two good things.
Two good things.
That's right.
Right here. Okay, well, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned. In 5 minutes, we're going to be coming up live with Shauna and Paul, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Take it easy, everybody.